Okay, we're ready, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We'll call to order this regular meeting of the Seward City Council, March 23rd at 7 p.m. Scott Mazuros, would you lead, City Manager Scott Mazuros, will you lead us in the pledge, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Tonight's roll call: McClure,
Here.
Osenga,
Here.
Cease,
Here.
Buckland,
Present.
Butts,
Here.
Kreis, here, Mayor Terry.
Yes.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is citizen comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing. I just want to thank the public in advance for using the alternative public comment method set up. And Madam Clerk, I'll turn it over to you.
Madam Mayor, the first person who sent in a comment was Carol Griswold. I'm going to time these comments at 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Dear Council, if the new Parks and Rec Toolcat had not gone through the ice at Second Lake on January 7th, would Parks and Rec be asking for another new Toolcat now? According to the resolution, insurance paid $46,890 minus the $10,000 deductible. But apparently the Toolcat wasn't totaled, it was repaired and is now in use at the harbor. When did the harbor request a Toolcat? I don't recall this going through the budget or council process. In the interest of being very conservative with expenditures in these uncertain times, I would rather council put the insurance money back in the motor pool or general fund and give the repaired Toolcat back to Parks and Rec where it belongs. Let the harbor make its case for a Toolcat separately through the budget process, if necessary. Sincerely, Carol Griswold.
Thank you.
Next signed in, next comment received was from Michael Mahmood. I think that the city should not enter into agreement with the financial engineer company to do an electrical rate study. I think they should put this out to bid. Thank you, Michael Mahmood, citizen of Seward.
Thank you.
Next comment is from Bruce Jaffa. Mayor, council, I didn't set the timer correctly. Mayor, council members, manager, and all. As a general note for our times, I offer this comment. When no emergency exists, it is often easy to assume money or effort for a future eventuality may not be needed. We often see this reticence in all disaster planning, even fire and police protection. When current expenditures work, there appears to be less need for them. At times of trial and stress, it is important to act smartly and deliberately. Now is that time. I speak in favor of Resolution 2020-004. Passing this resolution will allow an immediate implementation of other rule changes critical to fighting the current COVID-19 contagion. A sunset provision is included and should not be abused. I firmly support Resolution 2020-024 that continues planning for the Lowell Canyon Flood Diversion Feasibility Study. This resolution follows previous approvals of funding for this joint multi-agency effort. The feasibility study will provide for the best technical solution to the Lowell Canyon Diversion Tunnel. Voting for 2020-024 is forward thinking. Resolution 2020-025 and 2020-026 provide extraordinary authority to the manager to deal with an unprecedented public health dilemma. I fully support a strict interpretation of our federal constitution, the state and local laws that flow from it. I also understand tactics, and in a battle there must be a unified control. Providing this power to the manager, who I take to be a good man, with the sunset provision and oversight of the council is appropriate and necessary. I support the passage of these resolutions. Bruce Jaffa, outside the city.
Thank you.
And finally, comment from Sarah Spanos. Hello, Madam Clerk. Please share with the Seward City Council that I would support the electric utility study to follow the proper procurement procedure and have this be put out for an RFP. Also, I would like to see the suspension of the seasonal electrical rate slated for increase mid-April to be suspended indefinitely until the COVID-19 issue has passed. Sincerely, Sarah Spanos, Seward resident. And that is, that's actually all of them. And I did have an offer from Tara Reimer, although she's not on the agenda. If we need to call her, she provided her number. And that's it.
So no one's asked to call in, is
No,
that correct?
I'm sorry, it was my mistake. I do have some numbers if you wanted to call back out any of those folks, but
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
All right, okay, thank you. Next on the agenda, and no one here is wishing to speak?
may I call the attorney? Or,
So there is
Oh,
one.
sorry,
Yeah,
Albie,
so,
yes.
so you have 3 minutes. I don't know, can she be heard at that location if she doesn't
Yeah.
have a mic?
if you don't mind, just stand
Okay.
and just speak loudly.
And just say your name and inside or outside the city limits. Thank you.
Sure. So good evening, Council, Mayor Terry, and citizens of Seward. My name is Albie Tatum. I'm outside the city limits. I'm a nurse and clinical supervisor at Seward Community Health Center, training officer and EMT3 with Seward Volunteer Ambulance, and hometown Seward girl. I grew up in Seward, graduated from high school here, left for 20 years, and almost 2 years ago, my family and I finally moved home. Seward is and always will be my home. And just kind of, this was written previous to the health mandate number 10 that the governor just came out, but it is still relevant. So I come to you today as a healthcare provider representing the Seward Community Health Center with support of other healthcare entities in our community to desperately urge the local and state leaders to immediately issue a strict shelter-in-place order in addition to a strict statewide travel ban. It is our recommendation that in addition to limiting highway traffic to essential travel only as outlined by state officials with their strong advisory on Friday, that we also place the same limitations on our port, ensuring that any vessels that come into the port are held to the same standards. Additionally, even those who fall under the critical workforce infrastructure should be held to a very high standard, with specific direction from the leadership on the expectations. For example, if a seafood processor, which does fall under that critical infrastructure, is continuing to bring people into the community because they fall under the critical workforce umbrella, and they cannot abide by the recommended quarantine guidelines, they should be forced to self-isolate as a company and restrict their employees from going anywhere except their facility and their housing. The following are excerpts from a letter by the Collective Physicians of Alaska, which was sent to the governor's office on March 21st. They wrote, "Data suggests that the majority of COVID-19 infections are a transfer from people who are asymptomatic. Until we build the testing capacity to test everyone in the state and everyone coming into the state and receive rapid results, the only solution to contain this outbreak is to institute an immediate non-essential travel ban and end home quarantine. We thank you for the steps you've already taken to restrict travel and encourage Alaskans to stay home. However, recommendations against non-essential travel and for voluntary self-isolation and social distancing are insufficient. Due to the currently low numbers of reported cases, many Alaskans have not embraced the need for more stringent measures and are continuing to move around the state without regard to their potential to be affected or be a carrier. This disregard has consequences which we have seen in other regions. The death toll is rising in New York City. Medical systems are near collapse in Italy, and our citizens continue to interact with large numbers of people for non-urgent causes. Our medical resources are finite, and we are potentially a week away from New York and 2 to 3 weeks from Italy. The local healthcare providers, so this is past that, the local healthcare providers in Seward
Okay,
continue.
thank you, that's your time. Thank you. Is there anyone else? No more phone calls, no nothing? Okay,
I'd like to,
yeah.
I can give her my time so she can finish reading that.
No, we don't have that in the rules.
Okay.
Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda and consent agenda.
I move for the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda?
I'd like to remove Resolution 2020-022
Thank you.
From consent?
from consent agenda.
Any other changes? Councilmember Seats?
I would like to remove Resolution 2020-023 from the consent agenda.
Okay.
And can I just add one little thing?
Yep.
I don't want to pull Resolution 2020-21. I just want to tell them that they're off 1 cent on the page, on page 24. Just so they can correct
Is it
that.
the total that's off by
It
1
was
cent?
when they're on the back side where they list what all of them are. It says that adds up to be 1 penny difference in the total. It has-
Higher or lower?
it says it's lower, so they might want to correct whichever one their gross is,
Okay.
1 through 5.
Councilmember Buckland?
Was that pulling 022?
Yes, that's been pulled.
Removing from the consent.
I'd like to take off the consent agenda 025 and 026. Any other changes?
Was 023 pulled off as well?
It was.
Yes.
I'm sorry, that would have been quick.
It's okay.
Yep.
Thanks for checking. Any other changes? Hearing and seeing none, Madam Clerk, can we have a vote, please?
Voting on tonight's agenda and consent agenda. Osenga?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Butts?
Yes.
Price?
Yes.
Cease?
Yes.
Buckland?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
Your agenda and consent agenda are approved. On tonight's consent agenda, Resolution 2020-021, retroactively amending the 2019 budget to record expenditures of $315,712.38.
Well, it's 37 here, but when they add in the back, it's 36.
36 cents paid by the state of Alaska on behalf of the city of Seward toward the city's public employees' retirement system liability for the period January through December 2019 and appropriating funds. Also approved is Resolution 2020-024, authorizing additional matching funds in the amount of $150,000 for the city's share of funding for the Lowell Creek Flood Diversion Feasibility Study and appropriating funds. Also approved are the March 9th, 2020 City Council regular meeting minutes, and we will send the draft letter of support for the appointment of Robert Ruffner to the Alaska Board of Fisheries as in your packet.
Madam Clerk, I have a point of order. So I know we are meeting tonight in person to actually set up the rules so that we can meet telephonically or through Zoom or some other media and get that process in place, and that we are trying to operate under social distancing, so having 10 feet, but we're actually in violation of the state mandate because we have more than 10 people in this room. So,
Actually, the state mandate which goes into effect tomorrow at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
says if you are meeting with more than 10 people, maintain a 6-foot distance.
okay, thank you.
That is the
Okay.
mandate.
Well, I just
Thank
want to
you.
clarify the optics when we're asking our
Yeah.
citizens to meet in groups of less than 10, that
Right.
This- certainly, yeah. Okay. Next on the agenda is special orders, presentations, and reports. The first is Sewer Day proclamation. Whereas on March 30th, 1867, the then Secretary of State, William H. Seward, signed the Alaska Purchase Treaty, and whereas this treaty negotiated the purchase of Alaska from Russia, and whereas it was proclaimed by the state of Alaska that this day be celebrated on the last Monday of March each year, and whereas this day is of special importance to the city of Seward, as the city was named in honor of William H. Seward, and now therefore I, Christy Terry, Mayor of the city of Seward, Alaska, do hereby acknowledge and recognize William H. Seward for his foresight and wisdom in acquiring Alaska from Russia, and do hereby proclaim Monday, March 30th, 2020 as Seward's Day, dated this 23rd day of March 2020 in the city of Seward, Alaska. And I just might note, I know there's quite a few city employees working from home, but they will have a holiday March 30th. So it's an actual city holiday, so city staff will not be available on that day.
I'm going to just call the attorney.
Okay.
if you don't mind.
That's fine. But we'll move on to the city manager's report.
Thank you. So we have some changes within the packet. We have canceled a few of our positions that we're advertising for. So we'll get a restatement. So just the libraries pulled their positions off. We did hire the deputy fire chief. I did get notification that our HR personnel officer is leaving. So we'll get that advertised probably tomorrow. And then so throughout your packet, if you have any questions on the information provided, of course, not all the department heads are here, but
Are there questions for the city manager? Councilmember Butts?
Thank you. Besides the police department, what other members of the city do we actually have working and coming to work?
so to my knowledge, there were some issues last week with a few, but all of our staff is working at home or working in their positions. So Harbor, Public Works, Electric, the library staff is doing projects assigned through home. So basically, every single person that is full-time with the city is working either at home or coming in. So lots of the staff and persons are coming in. I do have some issues that we talked about today with the other managers group in the peninsula that we talked about, policies and how they're handling time off, quarantine time, that type of thing. So the rules coming out on that are pretty specific, like April 2nd that they change, and some of those mandates are a little different. But that doesn't really apply until that time. So at this time, that's where I'm trying to rein that in. If people are sick and they have a cold, after 3 days, you're supposed to get a doctor's note. That might be a challenge for the clinic under their current operations, but if you're having, we're not approving any travel or vacations unless there's an extreme situation with that, or travel. So essentially, we're trying to put all of our employees to full use in a different setting. This is very difficult because most emergency medical or response, you try to pull assets together and you meet and you talk and you try to say, oh, let's put some resources here and we need additional resources here. We're trying to disseminate people so they're not encountering others. It's challenging. Our MIS division has been tasked. I think most of the department heads have probably done a double their normal schedule week. It's difficult, but in tough times you have to do difficult things. So my answer would be, there are individuals that we have some lack of production, like if it was a normal week with the 8-hour workday, are they doing that full capacity? Not necessarily every single one of them, but I have some requests for fire department would like to train some of those individuals that we need to find things to do inspections on hydrants. It's still a little too cold to do that. The Sea Life Center has some funding problems. They're asking if you have additional staff capacity, let us know, because they could assist with feeding animals. I mean, there's a lot of things that we're trying to find and keep them occupied on work. There's a lot of things that, we're occupying our time with this situation, obviously, with the meetings and the calls. But I mean, we are trying to find productive things we normally don't have this kind of opportunity to get into, like code revision with planning and some of that. But what's really hard to do right now is projects. We're really focusing because the declaration is that critical work is also construction and building. So like all of our housing projects right now, and the hotels and things are being worked on, it's challenging to get our building official and our staff on site to meet with people and to examine that. So we're trying to come up with creative ways to do that with Skype. And so it is, that's the challenge, is trying to figure out how do you really get maximum productivity by not being in your workplace. So not everybody has a laptop or a computer with direct access, which is challenging. Not everybody has a home computer. So MIS has done a pretty outstanding job on getting things connected. Finance is very up and running. Tammy has gotten some procedures with AP and bills and how, so in this time, we still have to make our commitments and grants and pay our bills. So we're figuring that out as we go.
One more, Madam Mayor,
Councilmember.
if I may. And then the EOC is active?
So the EOC is virtual, so that's very difficult as well. So it's, tomorrow we're gonna have a phone conversation meeting to kind of readdress that. So there are some mandates. I know the fire chief at 9 o'clock every day is in touch with the borough EOC, and they have meetings and mandates. AML currently does about 2 meetings with the managers and the finance people around the state. It's challenging because usually there's 300 to 400 different individuals on those calls. Having people not muted and background noise, it gets to be a bit of a challenge. Our group is meeting. I personally have had my own issues with connecting, but there's a lot of other things happening, and I think there's a lot of attention and effort being focused on what do we need to do, and it's difficult because every day we hear a change to like what's the time frame and what are the precautions, and so for me, our attorney working with our other entities in the borough, what are they doing, right, with off time and downtime, and so we all talk about that, and we're trying to come up with, what is the state doing, how do we compare to others. I think that our stance has been a little more proactive and ahead of the timeframes that you see in others, but I don't know that that's a positive. I think we're trying to address that and lead, and it's hard because a lot of the things we're doing are not created. You have to do a lot of research and try to formulate things, and then you send them off to the state or the federal level, and they're like, this isn't quite what we want. So it's challenging. It's a learning process for all of us. It's very humbling. I think I have to really praise the staff and the people I work with because everybody is giving a lot. And I think all of us have a lot of fear and a lot of concerns, especially if we have older family or impaired persons that we live with or know. It's difficult. Sorry, I don't mean to
No, that's
take
good.
over, but.
That's great. Councilmember Buckland?
You just referenced possible that the personnel director might be leaving.
I did get notice that he is going to be leaving.
I know that I'm not sure if we talked about it or it was past council that had possibly talked about outsourcing that position. And I was wondering if that was possibly part of something that you might be looking at as well rather than hiring someone new.
I think it's difficult to just answer that, but I think we have to look at what the duties are and if we have the capacity to shift duties to kind of pick some of that up. It's really challenging going into our busiest time of year for recruiting and hiring to not know if we need summer staffs and to make that obligation to people. Are we going to have people to hire? Or it's really kind of a hold and see. I know I watched something with Josh on the tour buses on the news, and it's like, what if you don't get people till July? What if people don't? What if we don't? This goes into October, November, or further. It's a challenge to know. I think we have to examine where do we make cuts, where's our essential core process, and how do we accommodate the budget and trim where we can afford to. So that'll be something that we look at with that position, obviously, and I don't have a good answer, I'm sorry, Councilmember.
Councilmember Cease?
Okay, I'd like to just go on to what he had said. A few years ago, we didn't even have an HR, correct?
I believe we've always had an HR person.
Did we? Okay,
Yeah.
I was thinking we didn't have one. I'm sorry. Okay.
Um,
They might have done other things too.
I might just say, though, that I think AML, we could talk to our connection at AML and see what they think, because they had mentioned something about communities outsourcing human resources, but I don't know if that'd be feasible for our city or not.
We'll definitely be checking and investigating that.
Are there any other comments?
Just a question then, and I think you addressed it, but there are all these available seasonal positions. Are they still being advertised, but, I mean, nobody knows what's going to happen?
So they all went out a few days before this started.
Right.
I think they went out on like 14th.
Yeah.
And so the mayor had made the declaration on the 11th, so we were kind of just on the front end of knowing this was kind of moving. I think at this point, it's really hard without knowing what the season's going to look like as to whether, how do we even interview individuals and if we make commitments to them. I think, we have staffing that, are not fully capable of working at home that are still going to come in if we do get into a change of condition. How do we, things like if we do have other opportunities with our partners in the community of Providence and the health clinic and others need assets. And I think that's where we're trying to focus on is what if we have to mobilize financially and effort to mobilize to kind of address these things. And it makes, finance is set up to kind of keep doing their financing, but how do you look at resource allocation and encumber, they're asking us, hey, masks and equipment, and it's really hard to just know what that looks like. So some of our effort is going to definitely be addressing those types of initiatives and issues. So I think we're just really trying to cut back on any expanse and kind of minimize, if we have some turnover, we're going to try to minimize our outlays and tighten up as best we can.
Okay, yeah, so that's good. Are there any, Councilmember Klein?
Within regards to, I don't know her name, the lady that spoke earlier,
Albie.
Albie, is the city thinking, I guess, are you thinking of anything like what you said with the shelter-in-place order mandate?
So that came up during our managers discussion, and it's interesting because they kind of look at us because we kind of took a very proactive stance, and I did say that's really a community and a council directive. So obviously, as the governor makes mandates in this process, and we'll go over that tonight with some of the declarations and how those work. It's easy to, for the governor to say, we're going to do this, and then we say, oh, our community needs to follow suit and we need to enact that. It's a little different for us to be proactive on things like closing down the highway or the port. I know Juneau has done that. I don't know, for their community if that makes sense or is easy to do. There's ramifications surrounding that if you take that kind of action. I think that's definitely something we'll be examining and maybe even talking about tonight. I don't know. I think, our recommendation has been very proactive in trying to do, the best we can as individual citizens and as a community, but it's hard because not everybody participates, right? So your best laid efforts are not always fruitful to every single situation.
Councilmember Buckland.
Also, there's been a couple people talking about the seasonal electric rate that's going to be coming back around to raise again. I don't know if the council would want to maybe ask the city manager or administration to see what those effects would be if we were to freeze the rate so that they don't go back up. I just feel like if the season picked back up, we would be kicking everyone while they were still down, not getting able to get back up on their feet, whether it be a business or household. I know my bill when I had 3 people living with me would go up about $100. So I mean I feel that's pretty significant for some people at the time that maybe it would hopefully be turning around, that it would, so maybe if we knew by the next meeting or so what would happen, what would the ramifications be, or what would it look like if we were to do that?
How does council feel crunching those numbers and having them brought back to us?
Yes.
Is there any objection?
No,
Okay.
is it March or April 1st they go up?
You know what, I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
don't know. I
John.
think it is the
Is
first.
there any chance that, because we won't have another meeting before that, is to keep going the way we are until we find out?
So at some point, we're going to have to call another virtual meeting because a lot of these things we're doing this evening, the governor's emergency status only lasts for 30 days. So some of those things we're going to have to take additional actions on at some point. Obviously, it's presumed that this is going to continue for more than just the immediate near future, and if that's the case, we will have to convene at least to take some household, some housekeeping type of actions on these motions, and we probably will have other necessary.
I guess I would just think that we're not suspending anything, just not raising the rates to the summer rates.
Yes.
I don't know if that can, if there's any
Delay-
objection
just
to.
delay that even.
Delay raising them.
Yeah.
Yes, I would think that would be the way we should go.
I don't know.
I would caution that you seriously really consider that course of action, because those could potentially have huge ramifications to the electric utility. Financial ramifications. The rates are set up that the winter rates and the summer rates balance each other out. So if you take one of those months out, then you're effectively cutting the rates 50% to the electric utility.
So it sounds like the request is Councilmember Baclan, that I think council agreed with, is just getting us that information back, what the ramifications would be at this point.
I do know, so that was a huge topic with all of the managers and all of the councils on the peninsula. And the general consensus was a lot of the utilities, if you're not paying your utility bill, you're probably not paying your car payment, you're not paying your mortgage, and there's other things that are probably more pressing than that. But there is most of them said it took literally decades to increase rates and start building funds. And most of them are, and we have also said that, is that we're going to waive the late fees starting this month, and the interest potentially, but not forgiveness of the rates. I mean, basically, like they all felt like they're communities and they're not going to forgive incurred expenses to offset. Because we too are an operating entity, just like the businesses. We still need to pay our staff and pay our costs. And that was the consensus. That doesn't mean we have to do that, but that's what was said.
Councilmember Baclan?
I respect the thoughts that it has taken decades to get rates to where they have been for inflation and things that are important in infrastructure. However, I don't think that either suspending or delaying this is indefinite, and I feel that even if we just looked at what would happen, would be important for us, and at least I feel that that's something that a lot of the public is asking for. So, if they're asking for it, that's my job to bring it forward. So I just feel it's going to be a rough time for everyone, not just the city and our citizens and our businesses. But if people continue to be unhappy, we'll have no ratepayers or businesses, and maybe that's a barrier for somebody to open back up.
So maybe if council agrees, if we could have what the 30-day break would be and what the 60-day break would be, and find out what the ramifications to the electric utility, and even by Friday, and then if we need to call a special meeting to do that, we could figure that out before we need to. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Thank you, Steph.
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments? I have a couple comments, but Councilmember Cease, go ahead.
I don't know if this is the time, it really probably isn't with the city manager, but I've had several calls, and they are all real concerned about like the construction people that are working on some of these buildings here, that they go home for the weekend, and are they being tested when they come back to our town? I think I'm not sure how we would do that. But there are people that are coming and going back and forth to Anchorage all the time. Yeah, and there's a lot of concern. I've had several calls on that. And also the special discounts now to have you come to Seward to stay for a weekend or a week or whatever. They're real concerned with that. So I didn't know if this is the time to bring that up or not.
Well, just being, as a provider at the clinic, I can tell you that they're not going to be tested. unless there's
Unless they're
there's
sick.
very strict criteria on who gets tested. There's a shortage of the actual testing swabs in the entire country, actually.
Yes.
So there's very limited amount of testing that's going on right now. I really wish Albie had an opportunity to finish what she was going to say, because I think it was important to hear that entire.
Maybe she could email it, and then we can read it.
Yeah, it's, when there's something of that nature, it's helpful to have it in written form.
I do want to make kind of a public statement, and that is, the businesses, the people in the community, they're impacted, right, by what we do in the local government. But we really, our taxation, our sales tax, our utility, we don't really, and when it comes back later, it's going to be the SBA, it's going to be the state government, there's federal programs. We're not the mechanism that is going to flow that money down to them. But we're trying to advocate and say, here's the resources, here's where you need to go for that. And likewise, when we've gotten some, well, and I've showed you some of it, we've gotten some things in the mail. We don't have a lot of cases here, we have one confirmed right now, but there's people calling dispatch. The city is not in the capacity, nor is it our obligation or legal right to investigate, oh, this person just returned from this place, and this person is sick, and this person, if they out themselves on social media, that has to go to DHSS, and I was drawn into that and learned about it and passed it on to dispatch. We cannot tell people, we're going to find out, we're going to look into this person, because we don't have authority to do that.
So the question is, then, if council members are getting called, direct folks to call DHSS, because they're following up?
Thank you.
Yeah, and they, it's a little shocking, but some of their thing is, we can't force, if somebody has this, we can't force them to stay at home. They could go walk around the Safeway, and legally, it's, still America, and I know that people are scared, and that creates a lot of, some of the letters I'm seeing are very not pleasant, and but again, they will do their best to educate and say, look, you really need your family members and people to limit their contact and stay in place till you get better. And that's kind of the hard part in all of this, is just every single person really matters. How do you control that? It's really almost impossible to stop, right?
Yeah. If they don't want to do it.
Yeah, can you speak up, Holly?
Yeah, just to speak to this issue. So a lot of my communities, there's two different directions that they've gone. Some of them have done more substantial mandates that affect private enterprise individuals. The enforcement of those provisions are possible. You can fine, they take other courses of action. But generally what we're seeing across the country is the use of the National Guard if they really want to move towards enforcement. So I consider it bifurcated. There is taking action where you're mandating and stating what your rules are and what you expect, and it's okay for those rules to involve private enterprise and small businesses and large businesses. But there's enforcement, which then we reassess and we look at enforcement in relation to what the state can provide. But that's really a collaboration. It's a different conversation. So it's just to dovetail into what Scott's saying. It's not that you can't do it. It's that it's a pretty significant step if and when we choose to go that direction. And Scott and the Emergency Operations Committee would really have to look at what they want to propose to council, what action they want to take.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? I have a couple things. So I'm not sure where best to talk about this on the agenda, but it seems like we're talking about this already. I would like to see us impose a hunker down order that patterns after Anchorage. And I know some of this is in front of you on what that non-critical businesses are, any businesses that are not specifically named as critical businesses, those are closed. and then the critical business list are below. And then regardless of what we do, then the state mandates also are in effect. So I don't know if there's anyone else on council that agrees with wanting to have a hunker down issued for the city of Seward. And I think Anchorage has had theirs enforced and started, and theirs is in effect until, they began on March 20th. I think they started it Sunday night was when it went into effect, and then it is in effect until Tuesday, March 31st, 2020.
I would 100% agree that we need to implement something like this.
Pardon?
I said I would be 100% in agreement that we need to implement something like this.
Councilmember Buckland?
I agree as well. I just feel like it's pretty much what we're already doing, other than gyms.
The gyms are closed. The gyms are
Yeah,
closed.
so then that's, I think we are pretty much there.
So, you know, when I'll agree with you, I think we are there, and I think the state's there. You know, they talked about on their, on the governor's presentation this afternoon, they don't have a necessary hunker down order, but all their mandates taken together are their health order. So I think just having this in place just shows our fortitude that, and just as a way to get it out in one place to our citizens. So I am going to make a motion that Seward proclaims an emergency hunker down order to pattern after the municipality of Anchorage.
Second motion.
And I might just amend that it starts Wednesday at 5 p.m. and continues until April 24th at 5 p.m.
And that date, I guess, I don't have my calendar.
Mayor, this is Holly. I just want to, one of the things that I've seen some communities do, and I've done this for some communities, is look at something a little, so Anchorage has a list of essential functions, essential jobs, and how that affects what businesses are effective and what are not. And that causes some confusion for those businesses as they tend to figure out what they're mandated to do and what not to do. And Anchorage does not have a huge influx of seasonal employees for the processing, cannery, eatery, sport fishing industry. So one of the things some are looking at are creating a mutual aid agreement with employers, so putting requirements in place for work at home and hunkering down, but also allowing for mutual aid agreements with employers that then puts that employer in the position of assessing health risks, and completing those forms, and monitoring the health of employees and who's physically present in the city of Seward, and when they're present and when they have to go into quarantine, so that economically there maybe is less of a disruption. Now, I don't know, again, I don't know if you want to go that way. I'm just throwing it out there as a consideration of council.
Holly, let me clarify. So in addition to the hunker down, then they have those mutual aid agreements?
So what we basically do is, it's basically hunker down, but it allows people to go to work. The Anchorage's now offices are closed unless they need. So this is a good example. Legal and accounting offices are allowed to stay open when they're functioning in a legally mandated way. So they're working on legally mandated issues. We don't really know what that means. So because we're always helping people follow the law, right? So we're not sure. Our office, just as a matter of policy, we closed our doors. We operate virtually now, and we have a core skeleton crew on the ground in the offices, maybe 3 people. What a hunker down with a mutual aid agreement approach would do is it would have the individual hunker down, and it would allow for an exception for mutual aid agreements with employers who have essential employees or essential operations and work with the city to come up with a plan that protects public health, welfare, and safety. So depends on how we structure it. Sometimes it's something you only do with people with more than, say, 20 employees, or people who, and the language really depends. The way I've done it in the past is I look at the individual communities' economic base. Who are these companies? What makes sense for a hunker down / mutual aid approach? It really depends on Seward, is what I'm saying. So I would say, Scott, tell me who our employers are. What are we really looking at? And let's look at the risks and come up with a way to mitigate that as much as possible while allowing economic, because economic growth or action to continue. But I am fine with a straight hunker down across the board approach too. It's really it's a political decision that this is an option.
Thanks, Holly. I don't know that we have the capacity to enter into I don't know that.
The authority to enter into them under the agreement. So what they usually are, the mutual aid agreements would be similar for a lot of the industries. You would set it by the number of employees. So people who will have 25 employees or more, you'd be asking them to complete, this is just an example, but a critical health assessment form on employees present in Seward. And that form would get input from a medical provider at the clinic, and that form would identify people who have a fever, who have cough, who have these symptoms, and the mutual aid agreement would require the employer to to email a certificate of compliance with the city when that employee has had the 14-day quarantine and returned to work. So basically, the employer is really monitoring their employees, and they've agreed through a mutual aid agreement to do so. So they've taken that step. In a lot of ways, it allows them to make sure their employees are okay, too. So it adds that element of collaboration and oversight while allowing businesses to move forward. But the other option, is a general hunker down is going to close down all major enterprise unless it qualifies as essential, which is very common right now. It's happening across the country. So I don't think, and I think it's a tempered measure given what we're facing. So I'm not discouraging it from doing that. It's just this other option. We're small enough that you have more choices than, say, LA or even Anchorage.
Discussion, Councilmember Kreitz?
I can say something about this, and I think this is something Ally was going to bring up before she left, was, and just to give an example, as far as like Icicle is bringing some employees from overseas. So if you look at the mandates that are in place now, anyone that's coming from international travel has a mandatory 14-day quarantine. So if you're bringing an employee here to Seward from anywhere international, it's a 14-day. So how can we be ensured that they're going to follow that 14-day mandatory quarantine? And I think that's what Holly is saying. If we have something like that in place, then we're guaranteed that the corporation is following the 14-day mandatory quarantine that's in place before they put them out into the public, before we know they're going to Safeway or to the,
Which I will say, I was on a meeting today saying that they had that already in place. But I'm not that they had housing ready to do that 14-day quarantine.
The Icicle has that in
Yeah.
place, or the processing
Yeah.
plants have it in place?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of things happening that people maybe in the public don't know about. So that's part of the untrust that's happening. So I think maybe these businesses are doing it already. Vice Mayor McClure?
Oh, I was just concerned about enforcement, because we can't enforce anything here anyway, so we're going to say this, and the ones that are good will obey it, and then the others still won't. Is that any different than what it is now, really, when we're supposed to stay home, distance, and all of that?
Exactly. That's one of the things I like about the mutual aid agreement. Again, it's novel, but it's enforceable under contract law. So what a business will consider a worthy risk versus what an individual will is different. And when you have a mandate, you hope people don't violate it, but I don't think we're at the stage where we're calling in the National Guard anytime soon.
Well, I might...
The mutual aid agreement
But Holly, who's gonna enforce the mutual aid agreement?
Entity that you are
What's the
looking
teeth,
to help you.
what's the teeth with the mutual aid agreement?
So basically what it would be is, so you would say have a rule that says, I would say you have basic requirements for employers with 10 or less employees, because you're using that number of 10 people. So you're saying, in an establishment, in a store, for example, we allow 10 people, including employees at any time. So you have maintenance of the social distancing. Employers with over 10 employees or over 20 employees, whatever number makes sense when we look at your business enterprises, they will enter into a mutual aid agreement for employees physically present in Seward. They will place all employees who can operate remotely. So you're getting them to have most employees not on site and in a hunker down location. But then you're regulating through mutual aid what happens with their employees. Employees entering the city of Seward will be given a health risk assessment. If they fail the health risk assessment, and that's the form we provide, if they fail the health risk assessment, they must be quarantined for 14 days or whatever period of time set, and a certificate of compliance and return to work will be emailed to the city upon the completion and ultimate passing of that health risk form. Then the employer has a real handle on who's physically present and moving about in people in their employee, their physical health and how they're doing, and when they have completed their quarantine, but they get to continue to operate.
Councilmember
Because in
Butts?
Anchorage, so that would allow, for example, some businesses that are now closed, as most of us are, as physically closed, to operate.
Councilmember Butts?
So, as we look at this, between what the governor just said just before our meeting here, and what we have right here too, I think we're already there, and I think we're really darn closer to. I agree that we do need to do some more with this stuff, but the two questions I have with this one, and then this is gonna be something that comes in later, is if we issue the order here for Seward to close down these businesses, when these businesses look back for financial help, are they gonna look to us? Or if the state does the mandate, then they're gonna go back to the state? So this is the only thing is, it's from financial relief as we look at this. God forbid, we're gonna look at this later on down the line, but enforcement is definitely gonna be a problem. The governor's, like I said, his new things just said there too, he just put out this new in there too, again with 10 people, businesses, non-critical businesses, things like this or too. I think we're pretty much already there. And so that's why I'm not really all for a hunker down rule yet with this one. I think if we're gonna go all in, we need to go all in. And a hunker down is not quite if we're gonna make the big step, we make even a bigger step than this.
Councilmember Buckland?
I feel the same way. I think we're already there. I don't think that, I understand what you're saying, Holly, about you have to look at Seward versus Anchorage. Other than Safeway or Three Bears, I feel like there's not many places where you're gonna have more than 15 people unless it's a large employer, and those would be the people who are working. There's a few businesses that come to mind, but I don't wanna call anyone out. As to where it's, and then I feel that those employers are still, I would hope that they're taking the steps to say you need to be this far apart while working, but I don't even think I've been in Wells Fargo even in the midsummer where there's 15 people in there. So I do think even getting onto a mutual aid, I think even just working with the businesses would work fine. I think that we should say that this is a guideline that we're gonna follow, that we're gonna follow the hunker down policy. And that provides a clear, I don't know if she has what we have reading in front of us. As to shutting people down, I'm not quite sure on this list, and I'm trying to figure it out, who would be affected the most by this. So I'm not quite sure.
Councilmember Butts?
So just to kind of reiterate here too, the governor's mandate 9.1 just came out this evening. Hair salons, day spas, nail salons, barbershops, tattoo shops, body piercing, massage therapy, tanning facilities. Additionally, no gathering of more than 10 people will take place. If the gathering does, they need to have 6 people on. So they have just clicked off a whole bunch of these already. That's what the governor has already said.
Vice Mayor McClure?
Oh, and I believe we've pretty much covered those already in Seward. I think, restaurants included and all of that, so there's only one exception I see on this whole list, so.
City Manager?
So I do want to point out that we haven't gotten into our item for the rules tonight.
Yeah, that's good.
But on Rule 11, it says that the city manager may require businesses and commercial enterprises operating within the city to close or limit their operations if necessary to protect the health, welfare, and safety. It says the city manager may only order such closures or impose such limitations on private and commercial enterprises when the state has formally recommended such action.
There
So
you
if you want to direct, hey, we should formulate our, shelter in place, or the terminology is kind of similar, but if you want us to enact those conditions which the governor has stated, we can certainly put something together at your direction, and I would suppose get that approval at this meeting. I think first you'd want to enact these rules and do all that, and then maybe come back to a motion like that and see if, through the attorney, if that's legal to say, yeah, we want to approve that, which has not yet been. I think under the authorization, we're allowed to do those types of things, and you can give me the direction to implement that.
Okay.
But I think we should probably go through the process before we do that.
Okay, so let's call
And
for,
I do think just generally, just for efficiency, there is no need for you to do what the state has done. There's no need to redo it, because that is going to apply to everyone as a citizen of the state of Alaska, or as a business of the state of Alaska. And so you don't have to mandate those mandates. It's only if there's a deviation, not a, you can't be less restrictive, but if there's something you want to do that is equally restrictive but different, that's where we want to make sure those are placed in our rules. For example, if you want to do a curfew that is more restrictive or something like that, that's when we really want to pay attention to what rules we're putting in place, because we're demanding more and providing more protection to it rather than
I think our medical community just has greater concerns, but that could again be after, or even Councilmember Cease, you can respond to people and let them know that the new in-state travel mandate is that the state expects any traveler to leave a community with known cases of COVID-19 to self-isolate. So again, just to reiterate, Holly, you're saying that the state mandates that the state, obviously, just so that the community realizes, is that those cover Seward already, and people are expected to follow them.
correct.
Okay, well, let's call for a vote on that motion.
Can we
Councilmember
get,
Buckland?
a microphone on that, or turned up or something?
Yeah, because
The volume on our phone is up all the way. It's
Can we
just
get a microphone on it, or no?
if these don't,
Or
the microphone that's on the floor behind you, Scott,
oh, yeah,
is the,
the mic, yeah.
Because if we can barely hear her.
Yeah,
they
well, I'm
can't hear
straining
us.
too.
Go ahead, you want the turn.
But
This one's weird. It's a bit weird.
just turn it on, it should pick up. If,
Councilmember, sorry, Councilmember
I just
Osenga.
wanted to- I just wanted to restate what the motion was again.
yeah,
Yeah,
I was
go
going to
ahead.
ask for that.
Okay.
So voting on the motion to establish a hunker down order in Seward, in the city of Seward, starting March 25th at 5 p.m. and going through April 24th at 5 p.m.
To pattern after Anchorage.
Patterned after Anchorage, thank you, yes. Butts,
No.
Baklan?
Yes.
McClure?
No.
Osenga?
No.
Cease?
No.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That motion has failed.
Thank you. I have something else, City Manager, that you talked about, or maybe we haven't talked about yet, but the Sea Life Center submitted a letter. And they were asking for some financial relief, just to remind the public, that is the city's building. So I don't know if you need the council to give you direction, or what you're thinking with that, or,
So they did request, due to this time of year is the most critical time of year for their operating cash flow. And being closed obviously doesn't assist in that. So they have some budgetary issues. They do have a reserve. So obviously, if we were extinguished in our funds, we would tap into our reserve funds. They have requested to delay the payment on their electric bill, which, like all people, if you can't pay your electric bill, we're waiving the late fee. Please make your bills, because you don't want to get so far behind. So we can acknowledge that we're willing to do that, which we already are. And then they wanted to try to capitalize on some CPV funds. I think that would be something I would feel more comfortable with the finance director, of looking at where some of our investments are and some of our reserves. And if you opted to do that, of doing a transfer, they want to have a commitment to pay it back. They're not just saying, hey, but I don't know that they're going to get into that operational cash issue if they use their reserves. But if that should come up, I think it's good to know where the council feels if we aren't able to get together right away. So if I have to take some type of action to assist, if you're okay with that, versus no, we absolutely wouldn't do that. Same thing with assisting them with some of our staff if they need assistance with personnel to assist in their day-to-day operations. I mean,
I'll go to the Vice Mayor.
Just real quick, just to clarify for the listening public, the CPV, that's the cruise ship head tax money.
Correct.
That we have.
Okay.
That's what you were talking about.
Oh,
Same
to
thing
clarify for council.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, okay.
sorry.
Council, I apologize for interrupting, but the connection has been very odd. It's breaking up after every other word, and I don't know if the public's experiencing that as well, or if it's just what I'm hearing. It wasn't happening
That's where it
before.
just started.
So I just wanted to raise it in case it's impacting public.
Okay. How about now? Does it seem like it's ceased? Can you hear better? Is it working better now, Holly?
There might be a delay.
Now I can't understand you guys, so I think maybe I could call back in if it gets better. Maybe it's just me. Is there somebody who's on the public line who can identify if there's any issues there?
You're the only one on this phone, Holly.
Doesn't bode well, does it?
Okay.
Don't make it louder
Can you call
anyway.
me back?
It could be interference from the microphone. Is it sounding better now?
It just happened.
I can try to have her call my
Oh,
cell phone.
it's fine.
This,
She said this is her home phone, so I'm assuming it's a landline.
Are we continuing?
Yeah.
no, I was just going to ask that very thing.
Actually, they can hear her fine on it.
Hello?
Okay.
Holly. Is this a landline that you're on?
It is a landline.
She just
Okay.
needs to talk loud.
All right, I'm just gonna,
It
we're gonna
could,
try it again, okay.
it could be because we had put a microphone closer to you. There might have been some interference.
Oh, okay.
That's probably what
I
happened.
apologize for interrupting the meeting.
Oh, no, it's fine. No, it's good. Back to Sea Life Center.
Oh, right.
Is there comments from the council? Councilmember Baklan?
I would like to say, I know this is a hard subject, I feel. The reason why I do feel that is because I think we look at the Sea Life Center as our building, and that's something that's very important to bring people in this town. I mean, I couldn't imagine being here without the Sea Life Center, and the tourists that they bring. and the revenue and the sales tax that they bring into Seward. However, I feel sometimes that there may be a little bit of lack of trying to diversify their income rather than weighing so much on donations and corporate sponsorships that are maybe dwindling. And I'm sure they're getting, I hear they're doing interviews for new chief financial officer and human resources, so there may be some change up there. Everything that I feel I look at when we talk about money and we talk about spending money really has to come with a fiscal responsibility. I would like to see, I would like to help the Sea Life Center, but I would also like to see how they plan to fix this problem that seems to be occurring habitually sometimes. So if we're going to go down that road in helping and assisting, I would also like to see an equal plan to say, this is how we're going to try and make it up this year. This is what we're going to try to figure out and work towards with some specific goals on how that money will be repaid, either through more programs or other things too, in the spirit of fiscal responsibility.
Thank you. Councilmember Cease?
This crisis hasn't been, we've had crisis before, maybe not like we have right now, but it isn't only them that's going to be without funds. There's hundreds of people in this town that live payday to payday. And are we going to try to help everybody? Is the state going to help everybody? Where's our money going to come from? That's my only concern, is they're not the only ones in this town or the state of Alaska that's going to be in deep trouble if it keeps going.
Councilmember Osenga?
I was just going to clarify, I wanted to find out, is this just because of the closure, they've been closed and they have no income basically, there's no visitors? Is that what this is?
City manager?
Yeah, to get into this a little bit, I just want to real quickly say, this $700,000 account that they have was established because of this cash flow problem. And the Sea Life Center is not based on tourism and the ticket sales. It's based on being a research facility and the NOAA grants and the millions of dollars per year that's diminished because that landscape has gone away and they're kind of left holding the bag on, the ducks. And Mayor Terry and I serve on their board and we understand a lot more deeper and we could get into that. But I think what they're asking for is, hey, to be operational, if we get into a cash flow issue, would you be willing to, let us have an obligation beyond what's already set up? That's pretty healthy and we don't know that it's going to get there, but if it does, and let's say the worst case scenario, the Sea Life Center failed, it comes back to the city to operate and get, and so it's really self-serving for us to make sure that they don't get into that position. But I'm not disregarding what the council member is saying, and Tony's that's a challenge that they're working on and trying to find out how do we get additional capacity. But just to, not to defend them, but to say, hey, the climate has changed. We are still looking at some grant funding and things with the perpetual fund. They're having a challenge, and now having no revenue coming in at all because of this at this time of year just compounds that massively. So I think them using those funds, not paying that utility bill for the time being, they do intend to revamp and come back just like all of us do. So that's all. I'm sorry, I don't want to.
No, that's good. Councilmember Buckland had his hand up, and then.
Okay, sure.
Vice Mayor.
Well, it is a shocking amount of money, but, we need to keep them afloat too, and I would be for the suggestion of, they intend to pay it back. My only concern is that a legitimate legal use of the cruise ship head tax funds?
Right.
Because
I question that as well as does the finance director.
Okay.
So we do have other funds available if we decide that that's needed, and we would obviously bring that back before you. The CPV fund, it's like the state may not allow that to be utilized for those purposes, in which case we may have other methods to assist.
Councilmember Buckline?
I think I might, maybe you have more clarity than what the letter is saying, because at the end of the first part, when I was talking about the CPV, it says, also in the event of a significantly large federal bailout, the Sea Life Center would be willing and able to repay this amount. It doesn't really say we will repay this amount. So I am for it. I do think it is important that if they just left and we get stuck with this building and they say we can't do anything, then what do? It provides many jobs in the town. I'm just saying, I would like to see a little more plan behind an ask, where we were going to try and do more events, try and set, I don't know what the solutions, I have a few ideas, but I'm sure they can think of things. I would just like to see a little bit of a plan rather than to funnel money into something that may not be sustainable. And I think that's where I would like to see something say, we're making an effort. And that is not discounting the hard work, the very, very hard work that they do, the people who work there, in all positions. I think there just needs to be a little more clarity on how this will work out in the long run.
Are there any other comments, Councilmember?
Could something like that be worked into the agreement? I mean, we're obviously not just
Right.
throwing money, so there could be an agreement of a payback plan or something to that effect.
I think as you're approaching difficulties, you want to find out what are our options. Are there loans? Are there small
Right.
business? Are there assets we could liquidate? And they're doing that. So I think, the intention was to kind of feel where the council would be on that. You don't have to have an explicit yes or no, I don't think. It's more of, hey, maybe, council should have more of a discussion through administration to see where this goes, rather than yes or no at this point.
Councilmember Buckline?
Did the council want to hear from Tara, since she did leave her number?
Councilmember Butts?
I think that would be great, but I think at this time, like you say, we're not doing action tonight on this. We're just kind of getting a feeling, because you're going to have to bring this back to us.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, and I think, yeah.
That would be,
Yeah, that'd be the time to bring it up.
It's an inquiry into what the council would.
So I'm just going to say again that I haven't said it yet, but I am on the Sea Life Center board. I do not get compensation for that. Actually cost me money to be on the board, which I'm happy to do, but I just want to reiterate the difference, I think, with local businesses is it's a city building. And I don't know that we have any staff capable of keeping that building running if they're no longer able to operate it. So it looks like we just have a general consensus that we're open, would like to see how they plan to address the shortfall in the future, and then look at potential funding sources. I don't think anyone objected to looking at CPV, but just making sure that was statutory.
Okay.
Okay, good. So that was a long city manager's report. Are there any other, sorry. Are there any other comments for the city manager? Hearing and seeing none. Next on the agenda is city attorney report.
Is Holly there?
Holly, are you on the line still?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't have that much to report. I am preparing an attorney report. It is getting to you late. The last 2 weeks have been extreme and required a lot of fancy footwork throughout the state. So I did not have time to delve into your invoice at the level that I normally do. But that invoice is available if anyone wants to just look at the itemized costs. I will say the costs are still high. We had another 20 hours personnel issues, so we are looking at about $14,000. With your discount, that brings it down to $12,000. So you're still about double the amount of hours we want to see from, but before you were 3 times. So we're really working, we're really stepping back, which is good news. So you can look through that, and again, I'll send out a report that goes through the invoice, the cost, the project, and where that money is going, and our plans to get it under control, which I think your administration is doing a really good job of dialing that back. On other fronts, we are constantly facing legislation on a federal and state level. We have a lot of acts that affect family and medical leave and other aspects, even utilities, public utilities, even if they're not regulated by the RCA, arguably are now, we have a House bill out there that will make it, that will prohibit communities from turning off, shutting off utilities. You've taken that step already. I think the city has ceased any such action. But the point is, we have things constantly coming down the pike. We are trying to, so nobody bears the cost of that research, we are preparing memos and updates for you. So you'll start seeing a lot of those. Those are not something you're charged for. It's something that we're doing for all of our communities. So that will be, you'll get a lot more of those. There's also a lot of products that will be coming through the Municipal League Attorneys Association. We're trying to divide and conquer some of these issues. So you'll see those as well. But really the main focus for us has been COVID-19 and trying to help communities structure a response that meets your unique community needs. So if you have any questions regarding other standing projects or regarding the emergency declaration and where Seward is heading or what you're interested in or what you want to see, I'm here.
Thank you. Any questions for the attorney? Yes, Councilmember Buckland.
Did you say we had $14,000 in personnel issues?
No, that's her total.
That was the total?
So it's 20 hours of personnel issues. So you had about 32 hours of, I believe 32 hours of all other legal work and 20 hours of personnel. So you can see how that is, we do not usually see that much attorney time on personnel issues, but there has just been several issues that have surfaced and needed attorney attention. And because unlike other areas, when you want to terminate an employee, for example, or discipline them in a way that may be seen as effective termination, your insurance policy requires you to get an attorney advice or opinion before taking those actions. So there's a lot of limitations in how much Scott can limit attorney contact in the personnel realm. Your insurance company does have a hotline for employment decisions, which we've talked about the best way to implement that, and hopefully you can't use it for some of the more nuanced questions very effectively, but it's a great one to have at your disposal, and it's free. So we're working on getting that one, getting the department head.
Councilmember Buckland.
Also, we do have free 30 minutes from AML-JIA for personnel issues, so maybe we should be looking into using more of that. It's just alarming that we're spending so much money on personnel issues that are not being solved here, and I guess like you said, they may be specific issues, but maybe we can use more of the AML-JIA time rather than paying for more attorney time if it's stuff that we can get.
Absolutely. It's a great idea, and I think that Scott is working on coming up with a way to do that and make that transition. It's an excellent recommendation.
Councilmember Cease? Did you have your hand up? Okay.
No, I didn't.
Any other questions for the attorney? Okay, next on the agenda is Chamber of Commerce report.
Okay, and so the report is in your packet, and I will call in Jason Bickling.
Hello?
Jason?
Yes.
It's Brenda, and we're in council, and I'm gonna, you're on my cell phone, so I'm gonna try and give you as much volume as possible.
Okay.
So as much as you can speak up would be helpful as well.
All right. Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. Obviously things are changing pretty quickly, and with my report that was sent like a week ago, a lot has changed. But first, I just want to, before I talk about some of the things we're going through, I just want to say first and foremost, the Chamber's concern is for the health and well-being of the community, and making sure that everyone's safe. I just don't, as you talk about economic items and some of these other things, I just want to make sure that, things can always be replaced, but people can't. And so just that we are very supportive of actions being taken, and just hope we can all get through this safely as people. Secondly is that we are some businesses are winding down. We feel like we're busier than ever right now, just trying to monitor the situation for our membership and for our community. A lot of calls with the U.S. Chamber, the Federal Small Business Association, Alaska Travel Industry Association. I'm also part of the Seward Coronavirus Working Group that we talk about every other day now. And so we're kind of just trying to play a role of making sure that we're connecting all of the best information and most recent information to our membership and to our city leaders, and also to going the other direction. We're taking that information and advocating for our member businesses with our legislators, and right now we're trying to get a lot of resources to our members, like information about the SBA relief loans, and just everything from how they can keep their business safe, CDC guidelines, the ones that are still open. And so, we're just trying to, also do connections with our members, like who's still open, and what are the takeouts, what are your times, so we can make sure that everyone has access to those, the membership that is still open. And also we're working on connecting ones with creating a group, like a document of needs. If you need someone to work for you, or if you need something like that, because we actually have people that are in need of workers, and so we're trying to just help move information around so that membership, that information can be moved around pretty quickly to meet the needs as quickly as possible. So, and for ourselves, we're actually we have a hiring freeze right now because we're tied to the bed tax, and so we are kind of tightening our budget, and so we opted not to hire for the communications and marketing director. Instead, we hired a current contractor in a partial hours of that time right now, and just to go along with the ATIA guidelines, we're kind of suspending any type of marketing messaging at this time, just for the safety of our community, and just trying to promote through our messaging just of just peace, well-being. Go find your happy place, whether that's in your head or outside. And so that's kind of what we've been doing. And I'd be more than happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Are there any questions?
This is Councilmember McClure. I have a question. I know it's impossible to answer, but has there been discussion about the Mount Marathon race in the 4th of July?
Yeah, we are, Matthias and I are talking very regularly, and right now, like, that is so far. I mean, I think, put it this way, we're making plans, but we hope not to use them, and so we're just talking through different scenarios of even just, I think canceling would be the last possible effort if that was like the only choice. We're looking at like even the scenarios of postponing it if that's what it takes, but I think, when it comes to 4th of July or the Mount Marathon race or any of those things, like we want to make them happen if at all possible, because we believe our community needs them, and it's kind of like you want to have that. It's almost like an act of defiance that we will make this race happen, because the coronavirus will not have the best of our community and what we stand for. So that's kind of our attitude. But we obviously want to do that safely, and so but we are kind of talking through scenarios just so we can be prepared. And but our plans is to move forward with all those things if possible.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Buckland?
Hi, Jason. I just wanted to say thank you because I really appreciate all of the newsletters that have been coming out. They're very informational. There's lots of resources on them. I had a quick question. For small businesses right now that are concerned about the virus, what steps for small businesses can they take, if any, possible to expedite SBA loans?
I think just as soon as you can get your name in the queue, that will be one of the expediting things. So as soon as you can get in there, log in, you have to create a username. And I actually tried to get on there myself today, and just kind of went through, and there is a nice resource sheet that kind of makes it quickly. And so depending on also what legislation passes in the coming days, that money may also become a little bit more liquid, because some of that legislation has a reduction in the requirements of that money. But I'd say as soon as you can get your name in line, that was probably the biggest help, and also to kind of have an idea of what the potential impact or already impact is on your business, and being able to somehow quantify that.
Thank you. Councilmember Cease?
Yes, now, can you give me the email address of that one to go online? SBS? So if you go to the U.S. Small Business Administration, let me look it up right now. It's actually, here it is. If you go to sba.gov/disaster. And there's 3 disaster loans available. The top one is the COVID-19. Okay. And so sba.gov/disaster. Okay. All right, thank you. And then there was one more question when I was reading your report. Have you done the class for the fundraising, grant writing? Or has that been postponed and it's going to be later? ICE is doing that right now, and that's going to be later. We are probably going to do some kind of, once we can find someone who's gone through this, but we do want to at least have some kind of forum where we can provide educational opportunities on a regular basis. So that actually walking through the SBA loan process would be one. We do want to do a class on the grant writing, and we do want to do some other educational opportunities with Google, with using social media and and marketing yourself and that type of thing in the meantime, so that while our member businesses do have some downtime, we can equip them well. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Buckland?
Could you, the chamber funding is the past year, so you're a year behind, or 2 years.
Correct.
So every year you get the other one. So I'm kind of interested in why there would be a hiring freeze to not hire a new marketing director. And could you tell me if that is a positive thing or a negative thing, and how that would affect the membership?
So that was a board decision on. We still want the position, but we just, that side of our business comes from that, and so we just want to walk carefully into that, and especially that was made after the call where ATIA, a number of us were on that call, that said they themselves are actually not doing any more hiring, and they are shutting down all messaging at this point. They're cutting all type of marketing, and so part of it that was in kind of following their lead, because they're kind of the organization that we follow when it comes to tourism marketing and the direction, and so that was a board decision to do that. And so, and I think with the, we're still getting a great benefit from a contractor, and so I'm actually very confident in this, and just, I guess I'm one of those people that you want to be, and we're preparing ourselves for, right now, we had meetings this morning, we're making plans for how we can market ourselves as best as possible when summer does open up, and how we're going to do that. And so I feel like it didn't really create a disruption of any type, but it just allows us to be a little bit more conservative, and so I feel good about that. But I think too, just I want my staff is really important, and And we're looking at the long haul. I mean, like if we're preparing for like a bad disaster, which I hope we're not. You know, they're saying that we could lose 70% of our, you know, just some projections for that. And so I'm trying to be a little bit conservative, and so we can keep staff on as long as possible. And so that, I guess that's kind of the move behind that. I hope that answers your question.
Councilmember Bookline.
Yes, that does. The other thing that I wanted to say was that, you know, sometimes we think of the chamber and the city as two separate entities, when really you are, but you are our marketing arm. So sometimes when it's a little alarming that, because at this time, what I feel like there's been great momentum behind the chamber to slow it down, and I hope that it's not saying that we're still moving on with the contractor. However, I think we're gonna need a lot of really great marketing after this, because we're gonna come back strong, and it's gonna be great, and we need a really good, strong marketing team on our side to really push us forward after this. But thank you for all your comments.
Yeah, and we had just brought on another person too. That's kind of a compliment to that, and so we're actually have like, even sitting where we are now, we're in kind of a stronger position than we were a few months ago.
So I have just 3 things. So Jason, I heard you say that ATIA is cutting back on, you know, obviously pulling back right now on destination marketing, and I'm assuming the chamber is also, just with the current situation. Sounds like council members are getting concerns about, you know, spring specials and tourists coming. What's your opinion right now? Do you see tourists continue to come, or do you feel like with the travel bans that the state's put in place, that we won't have necessarily that threat of the tourists coming at this time?
Well, I think if just talking with different groups, ATIA basically put out, they have polls that they can get out within, like, hear the results from the next week, and they put it out there, and they said right now people have zero receptivity to any type of marketing, and so therefore that's why they shut it down. And so that was kind of the reasoning behind doing that. What we're in talking with ATIA and they're the ones who have like the closest pulse on things. What we're really trying to position ourselves for is a lot of like local tourism. People on the other side of this, people are going to want to get out of town, and but some may not have the budgets that they did before, and so they think that more than anything this year, that in-state travel is going to be kind of the key to get in on. So I think we're positioning ourselves to really be marketing for people to come visit Seward in that way. Probably, you know, 2 to 3 hours north is going to be a major focus for us. I do still think that we're still looking at creative ways, ideas for, and we were looking at this before all this, but really maximizing even the people that are coming in on cruise ships, the ones that have 8 hours before they leave, getting them to get back in town, getting in front of them before they get on the boat, and saying, hey, look, you can come do this in 2 hours, instead of going and sitting on the boat for 6. And so we're just looking at all the different ways that we can maximize getting people that are here into town, or getting people from up north to come down on those types of things. And so, and then obviously we will still continue to try and get people that are coming from the lower 48 and elsewhere. But just from the indications that ATIA is giving us, that is going to be our market. And I don't disagree with them. So.
But you're seeing that in, say, 60 to 90 days from now?
Yeah.
People would, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it sounds like the health community has some questions and concerns about local businesses and their, you know, the implementations that they've put in internally. Can the CHC and Providence contact you to be a go-between between those businesses?
Yes, absolutely. And actually, you know, we've been trying to get all the CDC information out to our member businesses. And so some of that came up from our call today earlier. I did pass on to Aisha, and you know, we're working together to put the newsletter. She's the one who physically puts it together, but just making sure that we continue to be more precise in our messaging, and just to deal with concerns, and so we're absolutely more than happy to help with that.
Do you see businesses responding to that and putting things in place? I mean, I think it's hard for citizens to know what those businesses are doing, but do you see folks following those mandates?
Yeah, I think so. I think that our businesses are doing that, and so I think we just have to provide people with really good information on exactly how that looks like, just to improve that,
And then I had one more question. So you say there's been an Alaska Economic Stabilization Team that was created. Former Governor Sean Parnell and former Governor Mark Begich are both on this team. And they've been talking to ATIA. And I know that locally, Bob Kanopoulos has put in an application to be on that team. Will the chamber be supporting his application?
Yes, absolutely.
So
we're waiting to hear. I was waiting to hear a communication back, but have not heard anything from that at this point in time. So,
do you think it would be helpful to have council also write a letter of support?
Yeah, I definitely don't think that would hurt. So,
okay,
that would be helpful.
So
I just think having if we have the opportunity to have a local person on that will be, I think, significant for our community.
Yeah. So I don't know, is there any objection to council? City manager, I know you're quite busy. Is that a letter you could write or should?
Sure.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. Are there any more questions for the chamber director? Oh yes, Councilmember Baclan.
Thank you so much, Jason. I really appreciate all the information that's coming out of the chamber. It's been really good to get all those emails with all that information that you guys are putting together. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, our pleasure. And if there's anything that you're not seeing that you think you need, please let us know.
And I don't know if Providence locally in the CHC, I'm guessing, I'm assuming that they're chamber members, but if you're sending that out to chamber members, could they be included so that they know what's going out to local businesses?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thanks again, Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Next on the agenda is 6E, presentations. There are none. Public hearings. So I just want to say this out loud for the public. Ordinances 2020-002 and 2020-003 are due to come back for public hearing and enactment, but are postponed to a future meeting when it's safe for the public to appear and provide testimony in keeping with the CDC guidelines on COVID-19. So that's why those are not on the agenda today. So next on the agenda is Emergency Ordinance 2020-004. Madam Clerk.
Emergency Ordinance 2020-004 is temporarily authorizing the suspension and/or modification of various sections of the Seward City Code and City Council Rules of Procedures Manual regarding public meetings and participation in order to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of our community during the public health emergency caused by COVID-19.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I move for the enactment of Emergency Ordinance 20-004.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, administration, do you have any comments?
So if you have any questions, I can go through and detail it, but off the top, I do want to mention that this is only a 60-day inaction. Holly and I talked about that a little bit, but if you have any specifics, I can detail that, or Holly's still on the line as well.
Councilmember Baclan?
Just for the public, could you tell us, and maybe for my clarification as well, just give me a brief overview of how you feel this is changing any part of code or procedures and what it's actually doing?
Okay. So in lieu of the disaster that was declared by the governor March 11th and the World Health Organization the same day, we are basically canceling or restricting public gatherings temporarily, like you see the school districts closing childcare facilities, the schools. We're restricting non-essential travel, as you're seeing this evening, with more action on that, in an effort to contain the coronavirus. These issues are changing almost daily, so convening on our regular scheduled meetings and trying to put things together and have action, let's say like our next meeting would be scheduled April 13th, right? So there's going to be a lot of things that transpire between now and then. And same thing at the governor's legislative level. He needs to order supplies and make mandates and do things that are not really normally in our job capacity. So this emergency ordinance is good for up to 60 days. So if this whole thing goes away and everything gets great, it can be taken out of place. It won't be enacted. It does require a 3/4 vote for approval. I just wanted to mention that. And so it gives us temporary rules and procedures regarding the emergency operations plan outlined by our code. And then we'll talk about those as a separate item. It does not have a permanent nature. It will not be codified. So this is just a temporary action to cover the crisis at hand. So things like some of our things we've waived is, that'll be in the rules that you'll see coming up in the next, in a further down item. But things like right now we can't have the public all attend the meetings. We're doing some other things, trying to make the public aware and advertise and have the write-in and the call-in. Some of those things are not normal processes, but if you approve this, it'll allow us to further those types of actions until this is resolved.
Great. Well, before we get into discussion, it's still under public hearing, so I need to open a public hearing, is that correct?
No, this does not require a public hearing.
Thank you. Councilmember Buckland?
So for example, say Julie and I would like to have a special meeting. We feel that the city should start a shelter-in-place protocol, and we would like to have a special meeting. Could you then say, no, I do not believe that we should shelter in place, and I do not want to have that meeting?
Sure, I would say that, and then the mayor has the power to say you will conduct that meeting. That's in the later pieces of the rules. But generally, most of these are coming as recommendations, so we're recommending, I have heard of other meetings and other associated things, meeting and convening. If it's that critical, I think that's, there's other means to have meetings. We're trying to go to ours to be more virtual. In lieu of this, I don't know, just the safety feature of trying not to get a bunch of us together like this again as this moves forward. And it's an option. The mayor does have that override ability. So at any point, if you have that need, you can reach out and she can say, no, you're going to hold that meeting, Scott. And
I have a question, but this does allow, working with the clerk, we could set up a meeting, and this would allow a virtual meeting, basically, which we don't have it in our code now, but that would allow for something like this to happen.
That's correct.
Okay, Councilmember Buckland?
I'm a little concerned about the restriction of it, where it says in section 2, the Seward City Council may by resolution repeal any modification and or waiver made by the city manager. Oh, I'm sorry, this?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah. By resolution was the problem that I had with it. I don't know how restrictive of that is. If we were to disagree with the city manager or any of the procedures, how that process would work and how long that process would take. If then the mayor did not agree with some council members and did agree with the city manager.
Sure, and
I can chime in on this if it would be helpful.
Yes, please.
One thing I would say is one of the things we did, which is unusual, most people are respecting, there's an emergency operations plan and procedures that really is intended to put the person in charge, put the city manager or the mayor, depending on the classification and structure of the government, in charge during times of emergency. And that's why they're so short, right? Your emergency declarations, we're going to be asking you to renew them at your first meeting of every month, so that the emergency itself requires that 30-day reinstatement. Because this is pretty exceptional, right? You're not going to do this very often where you're going to usurp council authority and control. But you are doing that to an extent here. One thing we did, which is different, is we required compliance with your charter. So you will continue to have your regularly scheduled council meetings because they're mandated by your charter. So if there is an overstep of authority, or you're worried about the direction the city manager is going, or you want to go farther, then you'll always have that, because we did not, it's my legal opinion that overstepping your charter is risky and ill-advised. That said, many communities are doing that. They are certainly doing that. But so that, if that's helpful, let's say there's a situation where you feel like he's asked for a special meeting and Scott has said, I'm sorry, not now. I'm not bringing this forward. And the mayor says, yep, nope, not now. You'll still have your 2 regularly scheduled meetings. They'll just be telephonic.
The question is though, if we felt that we needed a special meeting,
Right, and that is, if you need a special meeting and both the city manager and the mayor are saying no, then that is one of those things. The military, or the emergency operation plans are designed to fall slightly short of military, truthfully, right? They're designed to let people move fast and fluid. Our government, with our Open Meetings Act and all of these wonderful protections we have in place, is inefficient. It doesn't move quickly, and that's okay. It's designed that way to protect the public. But the emergency, the Alaska Disaster Act, what you see coming out of the governor's office, what you see is coming out of Anchorage, all of those mandates and policies are coming under the umbrella of the Emergency and Disaster Declaration, which means for a short period of time, we move quickly and we look to one person or a small group of people, which we have in our Emergency Operations Committee. And the Emergency Operation Plan that the city has been triggered by the statewide declaration of emergency by the governor. So that plan and the infrastructure under it and the command structure under it has been triggered. So if you want a special meeting as council members, you're not going to necessarily be able to get that the next day or the next day. What you do have is the ability to have a regularly scheduled meeting if you feel like there is an overstep by your emergency structure. Now, I don't foresee your city manager ignoring a request for a special emergency meeting, and you certainly have the protocol for that. But yes, it does give the city manager the ability to say, no, this is not happening right this second.
Holly, I have a question. In that section 2, it says by resolution. Are you referring to a resolution in the technical term as a normal resolution? Could that be just changed to a vote or a motion, or is there something specific?
Generally speaking, you want somebody to be able to make decisions, make them quickly, and make them effective. So by resolution is saying, wait a minute, we really don't want this to happen. You will need to do that at an emergency meeting or at a regular meeting, and that's why we made sure that there is a lot more mayor involvement in the rules that Scott proposes, or not, that Scott adopted. And that's another thing to be clear. Those rules are in place, and you're ratifying them and you can repeal them. But he needs the ability, arguably, and this is how the structure is set up from the state level down, to allow a person to react and respond to the emergency on the ground in real time.
Thank you.
So you would, if you didn't like something that came down, there's both a ratification component, but you would pass a resolution repealing, saying, we don't like any of these rules you put in place last week. And remember, you have 2 meetings a month.
But we also have rules that we cannot change that unless we're posting that notice that we would like to do that by resolution.
No, the notice provisions, though, they're suspended to a certain extent. So if you need and everything happening during an emergency may warrant an emergency meeting, which has different requirements, right? So when you go to the rules and they lay out the teleconference meetings and the notice requirements, they're still providing as much notice as they can to the public, but they're also allowing you to move faster through decisions.
Thank you. Councilmember Kwan, did you have any other questions? Any other comments? Can we call for a vote? Council.
I didn't have a question.
Yep, sorry.
My comment is I will vote in support of this. I like that it's cleared up now that the mayor is another check for this. And I trust and believe in our mayor to do the right thing, so I will vote for this.
And you know what you could do, if you feel uncomfortable, you can change resolution we can amend it on the floor.
I think we're ready.
This-
I think we're ready for a
I
vote.
think resolution for a reason, but I think it's,
I think
so
we're-
long as it's a collective, I like having the protection of council input and that ability of repeal. That's not in a lot of these. There's not that extra step. But if you feel more comfortable with the motion, council can certainly change it and amend it on the floor. It's not so sensitive as to require any further notice or action.
Okay, thank you. I think we're ready for a vote.
Voting on emergency ordinance 20-004. Kreitz,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Baklan,
Yes.
Butts,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That ordinance has been enacted.
Thank you. Let me just stop and say thank you to the city manager and the attorney for getting and working hard on getting that set up. We appreciate that. Next on the agenda is Resolution 2020-022.
Resolution 2020-022 is authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Financial Engineering Company for an electric rate study in an amount not to exceed $39,850 and appropriating funds.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2020-022.
I'll second it.
Administration?
So the utility director is here this evening. This proposal is set forth we talked a little bit about trying to recalculate the industrial rate class. Some of these items that were on the agenda, because they were already turned in and submitted and ready, we just put them in and kept them in instead of taking it down to just the bare minimum for this meeting. So this is prepared for presenting that towards the industrial rate classification. Financial Engineering Company has done the past two unique circumstantial rate, transitional rate, and the COPA rate design here in Seward. And I believe in looking at the code, it says it complies with city code under 610-115 and 610-120.8, which says it allows for the exemption of competitive bid procurement procedures because this is professional service, including financial consultation, and because these individuals have the experience and past knowledge of our system. I would point out, John is here in case you have specific questions about electric issues with this. If you look at the budget, it is almost $17,000 just in travel and coming to Seward 3 different times. So it's kind of, from a financial perspective, I would say that's, because of our location, that makes it challenging to bring somebody up just to complete this. I wasn't here, I don't know the technical aspects of it. John articulated that very well in the code, so I would turn to him if you have specific questions on what do they do and how are they going to do it, and so.
Thank you. Is there any discussion, Vice Mayor McClure?
Well, I removed this from the consent agenda pretty much in response to quite a bit of public input that people were concerned that this was a sole source, and also that this was the same outfit that had done it before. And so I guess I'd like to hear if there are alternative options if we were to go out for an RFP.
I agree.
Councilmember Cease?
That's what I would say.
Councilmember LaClon?
Was this an old proposal? Because it listed it as years 2020, 2021 for budget season. So it was like they were going to prepare a report for budget season 2021. So was this done before?
Yeah, so when I first approached them, it was back in September, October timeframe. But if we asked them to do a financial report, it would still be for the years 2020 and 2021.
So for this year?
Yes, because the reasoning is because it's in response that we froze the rates for this year, and so we need to go back and verify if that is a correct decision or if we need to compensate for that into future years.
So what, I don't.
Councilmember LaClon.
Sorry, that doesn't make sense because that doesn't take into account what we have been paying and the structure that has been going up, because now we're behind, right? we're 1% behind.
We may be behind, but they would do the analysis based on what we have been paying and project what we should be paying and versus or what our revenues and expenses are for this year to verify if we are behind or not.
Councilmember Kwan.
First of all, I don't agree with that because it should go to a time where we were at where we should have been at. Like if it was 2018, 2019, because 2020 is already going to be a year where we did not, expenses or whatever grows, right? That's why we have CPI, right? So 2019 or 2020 is not going to be correct to the structure that was based because it should have been. What I'm trying to say is it's not where it should be at 2020. 2019 was where it was. The rate hike was the appropriate rate hike was at this time that it should have been. So if we go to 2020, we have the inappropriate price with a rate hike that didn't happen. Do you understand what I'm saying? I understand it. I'm just saying you're looking at it. It's like looking at a special year rather than a regular year.
So Councilmember Baclan, it's been suggested that we go out to RFP. If the RFP goes out, how would you like it to look? Maybe that would be an easier way.
Yeah, I would like it to look at 2 years that are 2 regular years where the tariff hike matches the year that it's supposed to be in.
So 3 years of data, 2019, 2020.
So in 2018, 2019, and 2020 would be great because then you have one special year, 2 years where the rate and the tariff, the increase in tariff occurred.
Or more, potentially. Yeah. Councilmember Seats?
Had it ever gone out for RFP before?
No.
And
However,
I thought all of our stuff that we
Well,
were doing,
there's
was...
in the city code, professional services, there's some exemptions that can be sole sourced. So they were using that exemption.
Okay.
I just want to point out, this is kind of administration's push on the electric department because of the industrial rate not being accurate. Those 4 users, literally 2 together is equivalent to like all of the homes in Soldotna. If you look at prospectively, that's, we're talking a very large piece of our overall picture, and it's right. It's important to get it right because when it was implemented in the past, it was the city was paying the industrial users to supplement the rate, and so that's why they eliminated it. But now, I mean, it takes a lot of technology and understanding to capture what it really should be, and obviously these people have experience with our stuff. But
Did the utility manager have a comment?
So I would recommend that we don't have the financial supervisors study previous years because those are already covered under audit conditions. You're already getting the final numbers and being reevaluated and not approved, but identified in the audit, and that will also happen for 2019. However, any rate study is going to be a projection based on previous findings to project what should be done going into the future. So for 2020, the services will take into account what is actual now and project that into 2021.
Councilmember Cease?
Go ahead with Butts first, Councilmember Butts.
Councilmember Butts?
I don't think this is where we need to have this one. I don't think this is ready to go right now. It's something that's kind of already talked. People are talking about, well, it needs to change. It needs to change. It needs to change. I'm not going to vote for this because right now, if we're starting to look at anything, even starting to take a look at anything of projections right now, with the fluid climate we're in right now, this needs to wait. We need to come back this with an RFP, and right now we need to change this.
Any other comments, Councilmember Osing?
I can understand what you're saying about the fluid situation right now. I'm just kind of curious as to a delay in this. What is that going to do? What our situation now is we're looking for an industrial rate I'm trying to get this figured out. Are we losing money? Are we not, is this industrial rate not in effect?
Through the mayor, sorry, Councilmember saying that, right now we have the 3 rate classes, the residential rate, the small general service rate, and the large general service rate. We used to have a 4th class back in 2009 in the industrial rate. That was, at the time, during those budget sessions, was abolished because what we found was that the industrial rate was so low that we were actually paying more to Chugach than we were recovering from our customers.
Right.
Now, sort of in response to some of our larger customers asking for financial assistance, I've gone back and asked this contractor to include developing an industrial rate and so we can see how it looks and what the financial impacts would be to the utility in implementing an industrial rate for a large, very, very large commercial group. And the ones that I could see, I could see it impacting three customers potentially.
So we don't have that now?
Correct, we do not have that now.
And there's pushback from those users, like you can picture who uses energy here, right? There's 3 or 4 big ones. And the problem is, you know, if I'm in business like anybody and all of a sudden my utility rates are extreme, it kind of demolishes that growth and attraction, which, you know, we're trying to do economic development and build homes and bring employees in to enhance. So that's one of their limiting factors. And this is just one of many ways to deal with how do you accommodate that?
Councilmember Buckland?
We already know we're losing money. We've already talked about that. The power factor adjustment, when people use a lot of electricity, we know that we're paying for the difference already, and that's being distributed however way. So when you ask if we're losing money, we are. We knew
Well,
that.
I would disagree with that. I think our electric utility definitely has revenue. What you're talking about is line loss. So customers might be losing money, but our electric utility definitely generates a revenue.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So Councilmember Cease?
Well, do they have to come here to do that? I mean, all this travel, I mean, my gosh, that travel is a lot of money for traveling up here.
So I might throw out my recommendation. I'm going to vote against this. I would like to see an RFP go out, and I'd like to see that RFP examine our current rates, look at our classifications that include looking at an industrial rate. And also, I'd like to see the RFP, if it's an efficiency expert, look at the actual structure of our utility and expenses and revenues. In addition to the rates, like look at the utility as a comprehensive. But I agree, I think we can definitely see that Zoom meetings are possible, and that person should never even have to be in Seward, potentially. I mean, they can make, you know, presentations to council via, you know, Zoom meeting, and, you know, there's some possibility for that. So if they have to travel up here, maybe it's just once. Does council have, Councilmember Osenga?
I just want to clarify to the fact that I know that that we're losing, I understand that we're not where we need to be with this rate. So it seems to me if we're not where we need to be with this industrial rate, we should be trying to get it fixed as fast as we can, is what I meant. I know we're not in a good place with this. And it seems to me like this is just a means to getting it fixed.
Councilmember Stees?
Okay, if you get the industrial people to be where they're supposed to be, then it will all come right down to the rest of us that are residential and all that won't have to pay as much. Because they're already making money, correct? Their electrical department.
Is that a question?
Yeah, I said, well, is it? Let's see. Okay, if the industrial rate goes up, will that give the rest of us a reprieve?
So just to clarify, there's no industrial rate.
Now, but I'm saying there will be, if there is.
So the industrial rate could potentially be less than the large
Right.
general service.
It could be.
Could be less, yes. Councilmember Buckland?
I think I'd like to make a motion for the,
So I might just say, so if we end up failing this resolution, then any motion you make will also fail.
okay, I'll reserve that then.
Okay, okay. Is that correct, City Clerk? Okay,
Yes.
yeah. So are we ready to vote on this resolution? Does administration have enough direction on what council is looking for in the future?
It's just difficult because you have to evaluate what we have to come in where it's right in zone, where, we're making money, but we're not charging too much, right? That's kind of the game with utilities, right? There is pressing need. You hear from the Sea Life Center, for instance, you hear about their utility bill. They're a large user, and, maybe they wouldn't be in the same boat they are if the rate was different. So I don't know how we get there.
So I feel like there's time that employees are looking for things to do. Maybe a RFP can be quickly drafted and gotten on the street and get advertised if there's potential for people looking for at-home work. I don't know.
But I just don't know what the pricing is gonna look like, right?
Councilmember Osinga?
How did we get to this company that you have here? How did we get to them to begin with?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Osinga. When we did this 4 years ago, I went to the other utilities, and most of the other utilities use their own, have employees on staff to do their rate structures. All the utilities, not only ones on the rail belt, but also around the state, recommended this company as the primary company that was working in Alaska at the time. Since then, this year, he's announced that he's going to be retiring, and he sold the business to another company that is going to start doing it based out of, I want to say Seattle, but I can't remember for sure. So there's not many options. There probably, certainly is options out there. Another thing is the intent to use them again this time was to help save the ratepayers money, because he did the last 2 rate studies, and he's the one who implemented the seasonal rates. He also is the one who changed our rates from the Seward utilities charge to the cost of power adjustment, or COPA rate structure, and therefore he has a more intimate knowledge of our rate structures.
Well, and I just might say that there's been folks in town that have crunched some of his numbers, and I think even during those work sessions, there were some concerns with the calculations he developed. So I'm not a fan of using this company. Councilmember Cease?
He can go ahead and put a bid in also on an RFP.
Councilmember Baclan?
I feel like the COPA, all of those things, the seasonal rates, those are things that people are just like confused and stunned by. So it makes no sense to vote for this.
Okay. I think we're ready for a vote.
Voting on Resolution 2020-022. Baclan?
No.
Osinga?
Yes.
Kreitz?
No.
McClure?
No.
Butts?
No.
Cease?
No.
And Mayor Terry.
No.
That resolution has failed.
Next on the agenda is Resolution 2020-023.
Resolution 2020-023 is authorizing a sole source purchase of a Bobcat Toolcat 5600 from Craig Taylor Equipment Company, utilizing National Joint Powers Alliance discounted pricing available for governments in an amount not to exceed $58,671 and appropriating funds.
We move for the approval of Resolution 2020-023.
Second?
Thank you. Council, you'll find that on page 37 of your packet, administration.
So Norm's actually here. This starts out with the Toolcat was sunk in First Lake, right? The insurance came down. They said it's a total loss. We're gonna take it. It was pretty damaged, trying to yank it out of there. And then they said, oh, well, we don't want to come haul it off if you buy it for $500. So we're like, oh, it's a $60,000, $70,000 piece of equipment. We're going to purchase it for $500. Okay, that sounds like a good idea. And then our mechanic, and I can have Norm detail what we've done, but
So Through the mayor, so I know that the agenda statement says that it's fixed, it's running, it's not fixed. There's a lot of structural damage, we had to order a lot of parts. Right now I'm into it about $4,000 with more coming. The city's only gonna pay $11,781 for a new toolkit, and we have a second one now. For a total, I think I'm gonna be over $11,000 in parts to repair this toolkit out of budget. But the city will have 2 toolkits. Harder will have one because our 1988 John Deere tractor is really old. And, you know, a lot of maintenance to keep it running. We got this for $500. I have a guy on the staff that this is what he does. And he's been repairing it, bought a tire already, it's running. It took a week or so to get it running. Now we're chasing down all the wiring systems on it. Just got some wiring issues and some major structural damage in the front, which we're trying to get in order parts, and we're cutting and welding and fixing. So it's not just a little amount of money, it's a lot, mostly labor. So, but I have a guy that does that, and just time frame right now, things doing bogus and stuff, but he's actually been working on the toolkit, the structural part of it. But for Parks and Rec, to purchase another toolkit for $11,781 because insurance gave him a check. So that's all it is, $11,781.
Thank you. Councilmember Cease?
So is the person working on it a staff member?
Yes.
So then there's no labor cost because we're already paying them.
We're paying.
We're already paying him, but it is a cost.
I know, but he
Okay.
doesn't have labor because he could be laid off. I mean, go home.
We don't lay nobody off.
Well, I don't mean lay off. You could be like city and you have to go home and
understand,
work.
but-
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes, but he could be working in the yard. We're trying to keep people moving and working through the harbor. We're trying to keep the harbor moving, but he is working on toolcat. Like I said, we got it running. That was a major concern, getting all the water out of all the engines and everything. And there was a lot of oil changes and stuff like that. But for the price of 2 toolcats, I know it's $11,000. It's I know they've been putting money, I believe they've been putting money back into the motor pool funds to replace this in the future. So I'm thinking that money is already there. I don't know for sure.
Vice Mayor McClure?
Okay, if I'm confused, there's somebody out there that's confused too. This is calling for $58,671.
Correct.
So how does that vary? I'm
Gave
sorry.
them a check for $46,890.
Right.
With insurance company paid the city $46,870 to replace the toolcat.
Okay, so my question is, how much is this actually costing the city?
$11,781.
And that is reflected where?
21, thank you.
You have to, I mean, it's confusing for people, I'm
So,
telling you.
Councilmember, well, can you answer the question?
The question,
Where do you see the $11,000?
I just did the math from what.
Okay, but it doesn't, okay,
Yeah, it's not, math is not in the agenda statement or the resolution.
okay.
I just did the
That
math
was the
from what the
concern.
check that AMLJ gave the city and what the new bid came in at the
Right.
toolcat.
So it's 2 years old, and we got the old state bid on a new piece of equipment, so it was technically wrecked. But then instead of them taking it and going to a salvage sale or something, they just said, keep it, because we don't want to come get it, and because we need equipment, and, you know, they asked me, hey, does this sound like a good deal? I'm like, well, we're getting a $65,000 piece of equipment for much less.
Councilmember Buckland?
I have 2 things. First of all, if we had somebody to repair it, we shouldn't buy another one, unless there's an absolute need for it. So, what would the need be for the second one if they could fix it?
So we aren't in the position to say we're gonna fix it. They said it's totaled, we don't want it.
No, you're fixing it already.
We are fixing it because we bought it for $500, but they would not allow us to fix it. It was, here's your check, insurance is done with it, have a nice day. We don't have a say in that.
But you're fixing it.
Because we bought it for,
Yeah.
instead of them coming to pick it up,
Yeah.
the option was never originally to fix it. The option is, it's totaled, here's your check. And then instead of coming to pick it up, because the cost was gonna be absorbent for AMLJIA, they said, well, why don't you just keep it for $500? that was not on the front end. They never said, hey, why don't you fix it? Because it was looking at the repair cost.
So the second part of that question was to the harbor master, what are you gonna use the tool cap for?
We're gonna use the tool cap for sweeping. We got across the bay, we have this side of the bay, we do our fire lanes. We're also gonna eventually we'll purchase the snow blower for it. Because our 1988 John Deere is really old. It takes a lot of maintenance to keep it running. And so I want to replace that. We put that back into, we'll sell it at surplus. That money will go back into the motor pool. That could be part of this, I don't know whatever it will sell for, I don't know what it will go for. I'm gonna have more than $11,000 into it to fix that one. And then City will have two tool caps. Harbor will have one and Parks and Rec will have one. The Harbor wants to purchase a new piece of equipment to replace that John Deere. It's a perfect opportunity to do it for $11,000.
Thank you. Councilmember Osenga had his
No,
hand up.
no, he cleared it up.
Councilmember Seith.
I need you to explain this a little bit more.
Sure.
How do you get $11,000 out of it?
Okay. So, they totaled out the tool cap.
Okay, got $500.
Okay, AML, no, they total it out. AML GIA paid the city $46,890 for, like, the insurance company paying you for your electric.
I understand that.
The new bid came in at $58,671 for a new tool cap. So if you subtract the $46,890 from the $58,670, you have $11,770. My math is off, but.
That, now, okay,
Councilmember
that
Seitz.
isn't what I was, how do you figure that yours is gonna cost you $11,000? Then, are we taking that money out of your budget to pay for the one that they have there? You're talking $11,000, correct?
No, well,
So to the harbor master, you're purchasing parts to repair the $500 tool cat. Where is the cost of those parts coming out of?
cost of those parts are coming out of my budget.
Okay. But the labor, you're saying, that's part of that, is really, they're getting paid no matter if they work on that or if they change oil in the next car.
Correct.
Okay, so in my opinion, you can't say that you're spending $11,000 on it.
Well, in parts.
That isn't what you said.
I know,
You
I
said
I'm gonna spend
labor.
$11,000.
Yeah, but you all said, I will have labor involved, and it's not labor then. You are saying that you're gonna have $10,500 in parts to fix it. Correct? I mean, is that the way I'm understanding it?
Correct.
Okay. I was after the labor.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember Bucklawn.
Plus $10,000, that was the deductible, so that would bring you to $21,781. That's the total expenditure for the new.
Parts.
No.
Parks
for
and
the
Rec,
new-
I mean, Parts and Rec.
For the new one, for the absolute new tool cap, it's $21,781. What does the park department use that tool cap for other than clearing the lake?
So they're doing the same thing. They're using it for operations with snow clearing, sidewalks. I mean, the brush and the snow blower, it's immensely different than having our staff out there, and it's like having it's a Bobcat type of equipment. They're highly expensive. So when it was totaled, and you know, the parts on it are probably worth $25,000, $30,000, and it's just kind of surprising that they'd be like, here, $500. I mean, somebody at Salvage would offer. They just didn't want to come mess with it. They didn't have time. And it seemed like, you know, we asked Norm, hey, do you have some budget? Can you get somebody to fix it? It's going to be really reasonable. So you're going to get a refurbished piece of equipment versus like, yeah, we could use the second one. It's on his wish list. So instead, we're going to save money.
So I might just ask you a question, Councilmember Bucklawn. I don't think it's $21,000 for the new one. So it's $58,671 minus the $46,890. So the $46,890 is already after the $10,000 deductible, I believe.
Yeah, because they would have given us, if we didn't have that deductible.
They would
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Councilmember Butts?
So a couple questions, like, the Norm or city manager, how many operational tool cats do we have right now?
Well, right now, we're waiting on delivery of the new one that's being replaced.
The one that I have is not operational.
Okay, and so we have none operational
Right.
right now.
We have other
I think
pieces
there's
of apparatus,
one.
but,
Where?
I think there's one that's back here in the shed.
yeah, there's one sitting in the yard over here.
Yeah.
And our new, so the only question I have then too, is our new one that we're going to get, will it still be, because of, you know, it being brand new, is it still gonna be compatible of the tools back and forth between these?
Through the mirror, yes, so all the parts are still interchangeable between all the equipment. So the tool cap back here, the tool cap they're purchasing, the tool cap that we have across the bay, that we were repairing. All the tools, the forks, the snow blower, the bucket, the brush, it's all interchangeable.
Councilmember Cease.
What is happening with the one out in back? You aren't using it?
The one out back belongs, they cleared around City Hall, the fire department, I believe behind the fire department. It's, yeah, so they clean up around the garage. I'm not sure what they all do with it, but I know they're around here with it.
It's operational now?
Yes, ma'am.
They have stuff stored in the building.
That's,
Are we ready to call for a vote? Any other discussion? Yes, Councilmember Kwan?
Is it, how long has it been damaged?
This happened like January, February?
I don't remember.
I don't remember the date.
So is this an appropriate time to ask for this, like, to use this money? Like, right now, knowing what's happening, is it super imperative to do this right now when the weather is changing a little bit? I know April still can be snowy, but we made it through January, February, now March. I'm just asking, is it, do you feel that it is absolutely imperative?
Well, I believe the discount and the insurance, I don't think we have a choice unless, I don't know what the ramifications are if we don't purchase it with the insurance company about the money.
So let's let this question be answered.
So through the mayor, so I believe they have to order, it's gonna take 2 to 3 months, and I'm not exactly sure of the time frame, but they gotta do parking lots, they gotta sweep the parking lots, they gotta sweep the sidewalks.
So
they
there,
have to take care of campgrounds. They gotta-
so my question to you is, so there's summer attachments that it's used with this Bobcat also?
Correct.
Councilmember Osinga?
No, that was my point.
Okay. Okay, I think we're ready for, I might just make a comment that any tools we can give the economic engine of our harbor at this point would be, I think, well used. Yes?
I'm just wondering, though, when you said the insurance money, that might not hold up through there. We've got the money. They don't care if we spend it or not.
Right.
Thank you.
We're reimbursed for the incident
Okay.
through our deductible.
Madam Clerk?
Voting on Resolution 2020-023. Cease,
Yes.
Butts,
Yes.
Kreitz,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Bachlan,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Next on the agenda is Resolution 20025. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2020-025 is ratifying temporary emergency operation rules and procedures implemented by the city manager in response to the public health emergency caused by COVID-19.
Council, that's on page 71.
I move for the approval of? I move for the approval of Resolution 2020-025.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Council Vice Mayor McClure. City Manager, did you have, I'm the one who pulled these off the consent agenda, and the reason why I did is I just wanted to make sure that there was good explanation. I wanted the public to have a chance to hear about, things that you've already enacted, which I think were very timely and well done, and just have a chance for council to go through and the public to see that process. So I don't know if you could talk about the rules that this will put into place.
Okay, so under the authority of the Emergency Operation Plan, as you know, the governor activated the declaration. Shortly thereafter, we activated our local enactment of the emergency. So they did something similar locally when they had the flood damage. They do this, have done this with the road. There's lots of events that happen here due to weather. However, this is a unique situation. So after the declaration, we enacted our declaration. I put that in place. We did put these rules into effect. We want to try to comply with the CDC recommendations. And there's been a lot of research and a lot of things coming. I think a lot of people are up on that and watching it, and it changes daily almost. So the resolution is ratifying the rules that are put in place. You can change these through resolution, so you can recommend that we take them out. You can modify them. So they are, it's important to know that there's 5 days. So it's likely that this is not the finalized complete product, right? So something happens tomorrow or a situation arises here where we're warranted with action. Section 2, it does, they do have to be posted within 5 days on our website for public inspection. And they do have an ability for the council to call for a de-enactment. I would try to assure you that I'm not going to do anything like that. I would, at the very least, talk to each of you individually, get your feeling on where we are with issues, and take the recommendation, obviously, of the state and the other entities. So if you want me to, I can go through these. They were enacted, and they are put in effect until April 24th. So when we put this into place on the 17th, everybody thought, wow, April 24th, what are you talking about? That's so far out. And then the stuff you're seeing now is, they're going into May, and end of March is short term. So, we took a very robust stance on that initially, and I think, as a community and working with the attorney, it took a lot of effort and work, and we thought, let's put something out there that's tangible. So the first rule is obviously your electronic council meetings. Because we did not have that, our code actually prohibits that. So we needed to have some kind of a methodology where we can convene and do business. And so that rule 1, if you want me to, I can go through that. Mm-hmm. It does allow for everything that the clerk has been she stepped out and kind of made that public available, and the comments, and it's a great thing to promote. It does say that if it should be allowed, you could have up to 5 persons in such a meeting, 5 persons in the public. That's something that right now doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Because right now we're trying to minimize it to just 10 people in the room. But as this is going, it's changing. So if we do have the ability to let groups of 5 outside to come in, it's something we can change and amend. Rule 2, the council meeting notice and packet materials. We have to have at least a 6-hour prior posting. Generally speaking, with these rules, I have to enact them, and so I would send them out, the clerk would post them, and you would hear about them before we actually enact them, obviously. Rule 3, the meetings of boards and commissions. So we did technically, through my actions, cancel all non-essential meetings. That most have complied with that, but like planning and zoning, all of the different HPC, and the meetings have just, for the time being, been put on postponement because of the risk of having people convene. Rule 4, it's suspending of all non-essential meetings and agenda items. So all non-essential meetings until no earlier than April 24th. And some of these are a little lengthy. I didn't want to.
No, you're doing great.
They're on the
Just
website.
Highlights, yep.
Rule 5, licensed or permitted activities. It says the city manager may suspend licenses or permits for special events. Any other licenses or permits issued in the city, which is in the judgment of the city manager. Now that would be like maybe the hotels, or maybe you have that's a hard thing to do on private business, right? But what if the situation warrants that? It says that the impact on public health, well-being of residents or visitors to the community. Mm-hmm. So there is that ability to have that if necessary. That's not put in place yet. Rule 6 is purchases. So the manager may authorize any purchase for which funds are available reasonably related to the emergency. So things that we're talking to the Office of Emergency Management at the borough is things like, how do we get the N95 masks? How many do we need? Or do we need, they ask us in the meeting and they're like, how many do you need? Well, we have 2,500 people here right now. Do we need 10,000? Mm-hmm. Is it for a month? Is it for 10 months? It's really hard to get those projections, but we have to put in orders and do these types of things. Sometimes we went out today and procured some at ACE, and we do have them on hand. It's important as we move forward that our staff is going to have some PPE. Julie does that multiple times a day. you have to have that. You can't just go without. So there's some necessary items with that rule, and that you don't know what we're going to need, but we have to be able to enact it and authorize it, maybe even outside of budget if it's health and safety. 7 is personnel policies. That was floated around quite a bit today in the managers meeting we had. Some of them are proposing temporary resolution changes to their personnel because they're like, what happens if every police officer in the city is sick? Do we have to do hirings? How do we deal with that? Is it an appointment? What if you need to have somebody, essential personnel, and everybody cannot be here? So those are things that we don't take lightly, but that we have to be able to step up and do appropriately. Sufficient staffing during those emergencies. What if there's a big outbreak and you have to have, Providence is like, hey, we need people, send us people. And so it's important that we at least examine what's the PPE, what are the supplies, how do we align that. So we're working on our contingency planning and issue planning. Bargaining units, it also allows me to do MOUs with the city's bargaining units. I have been in touch with them. Our attorney firm has been speaking to one. I have been in constant contact with the other. There were some issues when we enacted these things. There were questions. Initially, they called me and said, how come, I think for the public, it was in the paper, and they said, city employees are not here till the 24th. And it's like, no, the next day, it was like, we're doing business as normal, but not everyone can be together, and we have to take precautions and follow these guidelines. And I think that was misunderstood and maybe not publicized real well. We had staff that called and said, hey, we have boat lifts, and get down here, and they called the union, and they're like, hey, how come I'm being called into work? I tried to be very thorough with my department heads and say, here's what we're doing and here's how it works. And we're trying to get the maximum efficiency out of our employees to produce work and to do what is necessary in the situation, but also to try to keep all those things going. So that's the personnel, the bargaining units. Number 9 is city facilities. So currently, almost all of our facilities are closed to the public. We can go to limited hours. At this point, the harbor master's office is approachable and the front desk at the police department. We tried to, our website has lots of contact information. We try to put our numbers up. We try to advocate, here's how you get a hold of planning. Here's how you get a hold of this staff. We're trying the best we can to make it less than a day or sometimes immediately that we respond and deal with issues with the public because they're still happening. Rule 10, public to access the city facilities. Again, that's the one I just talked about. Number 11, private facilities. This is a tricky one. Holly and I have had a lot of discussions, and when she helped me, she created some of these with other in-place entities, and we went through them and worked on them. It says the city manager may require businesses and commercial enterprises operating within our city limits to close or limit operations. It says may only order such closures when they're placed by the state of Alaska formally recommending that such action be taken. Like on travel, some of those things you don't, we can take some action if you warrant that necessary, but I'm thinking of some of the managers that have closed their airports or their highways. That's a majorly significant impact, and this allows us, but that's where you'd have time to say, hey, that's not something we want to do. I would try to get everyone on board and understand if that's an action you're willing to take before we do it. But some of these things have to happen before we can actually convene. The amounts due on owing. So it says upon the recommendation of the finance director that the city manager is hereby authorized to extend deadlines for payments released to any amounts due and owing by the city. So we have said we're not going to collect late fees on the utility bills. We're not saying that they're waived and you never have to pay it, but we're not going to accrue interest. We're not going to include late fees. Now that doesn't go, like if you've had late fees and overdue things from December, obviously this is starting in March and anything accrued forward. We by law, nationally, you're not allowed to do cutoffs right now. So anybody that is not paid up and they have problems, we're not shutting off service. We have enacted a plan where we're trying to limit some of our on-service. Because as you know, getting into the spring season, there's going to be several people that may or may not migrate here, and they're like, oh, I need to turn on my house or my hotel that I don't live in. we're going to try to minimize that to exposure to our personnel going into the facility. And is it, like if they're just turning it on to get ready, but no one's actually living in the facility, we're going to try to make sure it's not a risk and that it really is needed. So that's, I just want to make sure people are understanding that. And then Rule 13, it's the duration, and it talks about these rules are only effective for 90 days. Council may repeal any or all of these rules by resolution, and we intend to not keep any of these in longer than necessary. So that's what we propose. This probably will change and be updated as things happen. But for now, it gives us the authority and the allowance to hopefully do what we need to make it safe.
Great, that was a very thorough explanation. Thank you. Councilmember Butts?
So a couple of things. I know that there's been some talk now about a temporary ban to the plastic bag initiative too. With that too, I don't know if that's something that you want to take a look at too, about that one too. Anyway, my one question is, with this one of asking private businesses to close or limit operations probably too, would we, in this disaster thing, would you have the ability to be able to ask a business to open if needed be?
Absolutely, and that would be also under the procurement and inaction. So in an emergency, you literally could be like, we need to acquire, like if there's flooding, we need to acquire Metco's equipment. Hey, we're not going to just take it, we're going to reimburse them, but it allows us to enact necessary means to save life and protect the community.
Great. Vice Mayor McClure, did you have?
And I can talk to that one. That's actually a very astute question because it's very tricky. So let me know when it would be a good time for me to chime in on that.
Did you need any further clarification on
No,
that?
that's
I
it.
think we're good. Councilmember Baclan?
I'm not for suspending the plastic bag ban because bags are already provided. If you were to say that you can, if not bringing in your reusable bags, but using bags that are provided at the stores, then I'd be in favor of that, but not bringing back the plastic bags, no. I think there's been a great effort to get that to happen, and I have not seen a plastic bag going around in the tree in a while, and I would not like to see any more. So I do understand the risk of that, but bags are provided at the store as of now. So if that is something that you feel people can mitigate, then maybe not bringing their own bags, but I don't think cloth surfaces was a more harder thing than hard surfaces comparatively. But the people also have the plastic bag, those reusable ones.
So maybe to the clerk, I know that you're sending community updates. Could you check with the medical community and see if they have a recommendation and see if the brown bags are fine? Or if the medical community recommends that people not bring their reusable bags?
Sure.
Thank you. Councilmember Cease?
I think, didn't I just read today that they aren't letting you in the grocery store with your own bags?
I did see that Three Bears put that out, but we don't
Was it Three
technically
Bears?
have a Three Bears in Seward. We have a Seward
Well,
Market and a Safeway. So
Yeah.
It's
it would just be,
beginning,
it would just be interesting to see.
Okay, hadn't thought of that. I
Did
still
we
call
have-
it Three Bears.
Well, I have a question for you, and maybe it's a comment. So a lot of people have been texting and asking me, let's just close down our highways at the bridges, which first off, I think would disenfranchise a lot of our community outside city
Right,
limits. That would need essential services inside, and I feel like we're enough of a community, whether you're inside or outside city limits, we're in this together. And then I know we talked about then are we talking about Moose Pass? Are we talking about the Y? And I don't think that's something that we can regulate, but I would be interested as a council to maybe through the city manager, send a letter to the governor and say that we do support an in-state travel ban. And I know that there's, I believe with today, there's some self-isolation rules that they've put in place, but I wonder if I would have support from the council to send a letter saying we support an in-state travel ban. No?
Yep.
I see a shaking head.
I think that,
Vice Mayor McClure?
I think that would, it sounds reasonable, but and for me, it wouldn't matter because I never go anywhere, but I mean, think about how many times anyone here has been to Anchorage for whatever reasons. I mean, I know it's an emergency, so I don't know.
But if you look at what recommendations
Councilmember
are
Kreitz.
currently, is if you go to a community that has an active outbreak of coronavirus, you're supposed to isolate yourself for 14 days. So Seward has an active outbreak, and so does Anchorage have an active outbreak. So essentially, if you leave your community, or if you go to Sterling, if you go to Soldotna, so if we leave our community, we have to isolate for 14 days as it is.
And maybe I should amend that we send a
should
letter
be
to the governor
enforced.
to restrict all non-essential travel, non-essential in-state travel.
So the managers group today actually sent them, not, I didn't draft it, but the group sent on behalf of all of the Kenai Peninsula area that it's, if, do things unified. It's, it doesn't help us if Moose Pass and every other community around us doesn't do any of these things. It makes sense as like, hey, if you're gonna shut down the state, do it as the whole state, do it as air. It feels like that's coming. I think, they're broadcasting if you're an Alaskan and you're not here, get back. If you're at lower 48, get out. It feels like that's coming, and who knows how long that could last. So, but that's kind of the message, and I think it's hard to, they have a large team that's being advised and a lot of information, and it's hard to, it's hard to know what to do. They have a lot more resources and knowledge than all of the different entities that are smaller.
So just to clarify before, so the city managers on the Kenai Peninsula have drafted a letter to send?
They sent a thing to the chief of staff saying, hey, the governor should, we want to act unified, but it doesn't, so being a second-class borough, like when we closed the restaurants, if the second-class borough does not have the authority to do that. So like if the city of Seward closed all the restaurants, the borough could stay open and people would all still go there. Does that make sense? So like we're hoping that in a unified action, and this is more of an extreme than what the others have done so far. I don't think it's going to feel extreme in another week or two, so.
Councilmember Cease?
I just would like Julie to repeat that. If I go to Anchorage,
So the recommendation is that if you travel to a community that has a known outbreak of coronavirus, then you need to self-isolate when you return from that community. So currently Anchorage has an outbreak of coronavirus, Seward has a known outbreak of coronavirus, Sterling, Soldotna. So essentially, anywhere that we're gonna go, we need to self-isolate when we return from that community for 14 days.
that is the recommendation.
So the actual language, Councilmember Cease, is from the governor, is to prevent the spread of coronavirus disease, COVID-19, the state of Alaska is issuing the following strong advisory. And you don't have this in front of you, I printed it out today. And it says, we expect any traveler who leaves a community with known cases of COVID-19 to self-isolate for 14 days upon arrival to their destination community and monitor for symptoms of illness. So, Councilmember Buckland?
I agree that there should be some sort of support on what we would like to see. But then going back to look at like what was essential and not essential. And I received a call today about construction workers and people that are coming in. Construction is essential. So that kind of plays into what, what is essential and not essential. And what can we do? Just really encourage people to stay home, wash your hands, self-isolate. I know everyone's going crazy, I am too, but it's, that we need to do something, we need to be active and to do something about it, and unfortunately, the something to do is nothing, and stay at home. I agree with you, how can we get that, is that a mutual understanding, or is that we do not agree on that?
And you're, sorry, Councilmember Buckland, you're specific to the sending a recommendation to the governor on an in-state travel ban?
Yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Butts?
I'm in support of this resolution that we should do this, and then I think as we go along with these electronic meetings, that these things are gonna we are gonna be changing as we go, and I think that's what too. So, yes, I am in support of this resolution.
Okay, we did get off track. Is there any other discussion with this resolution? I might just say that I've been impressed with the city manager. I know this has been, you know, a little bit of a bumpy ride and we're treading new ground, but I think he's doing a great job setting an example for staff and clarifying things as we go, and I very much appreciate that.
And I would give the credit to our team, Brenda
Yeah.
and the chief and our staff.
City managers and fire chief definitely has been
We're
right in
only
there.
good when our team is good, and they're all definitely pitching in. And I don't think any of us work less than like a 12-hour day or 15-hour day, and it's tiring, but it's important.
And the city attorney also.
And Holly was instrumental in kind of advocating around the state too. It's been great.
Are we ready for a vote then? Okay.
Voting on resolution 2020-025. Cease,
Yes.
Backlund,
Yes.
Butts,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Kreitz,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is resolution 2020-026.
Resolution 2020-026 is declaring a state of emergency in response to the coronavirus COVID-19 outbreak and requesting state and federal relief assistance.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2020-026.
Second?
I pulled this off the consent. I don't think we need to have as much explanation, but I just wanted the public to know, and if there's anything further from administration, that the city manager already put this in place, and then this is just ratifying that at the council level. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Correct.
And then I don't know if the city manager had anything addition to add.
So the city attorney mentioned that we will have to ratify this at the first meeting every month going forward because we only have authority for 30 days.
Okay.
And this is really critical for the city itself, but for any kind of, like right now, we have to go through OEM and track, like what are our efforts, what are our manpower, what are we doing with sick time and quarantine time? And it has to be in place for reimbursement. So it's important not to just step up and do these things, but that we do it properly, that we can get recovery for the citizens and our costs.
Great. Is there any further discussion? Okay, we'll call for a vote.
Voting on resolution 2020-026. Butts,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Kreitz,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Backlund,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is B, other new business items. And number 3 is discuss canceling the Sister City Student Exchange Program. Madam Clerk, since that's run out of your office, did you want to provide any input on that?
Well, you know, we are in touch with the folks in Obihiro and monitoring things on both ends. They're keeping an eye on us and vice versa. Because of the amount of planning that goes into the exchange program, and because currently there are so many businesses that are shut down temporarily right now, and not knowing how long this is going to go, the folks in the Obihiro are in the midst of, or on the verge of making travel arrangements and plans, and we just don't want to go to those lengths if we can't really have some confidence that we're going to have activities for them to do if they even are allowed to come over here. So I think I'm just recommending we make a clean, maybe just a clean break on it this year. It's very disappointing for the students that Seward has already had apply and those kids have already done fundraising. This is really disappointing, but I think it is my recommendation now.
I might just speak and say, so a month ago, my daughter had a school trip planned to Washington DC that would have been this week. And so a month ago, they canceled that. And at the time, we thought like that was very short-sighted and people should wait things out. But obviously, looking backwards, that was the right decision. So I think that I would approve, we'll get a motion on the floor, but I would be in favor of canceling this. But I would like to say, for our students that are already accepted for this year, that they're automatically accepted for next year if they would wish to go next year. That would be my only stipulation.
I would take every one of them again.
Yeah.
They're great kids, yeah.
Councilmember Cease?
Well, I was going to mention this, kind of the same thing, but then would we be able to send the new ones also, seeing we have the money in the budget? Anybody else also? But maybe you can't get housing for them all.
Well, we do have a limit on both ends.
Oh,
We're
okay.
limited to 4 students, so
Okay.
we have 3 students that applied and were accepted this year, so we could take one new addition.
One more, okay, thank you.
Is there any other comment with that? Would you like a motion or just look around or?
As long as there's no objection, I think I'm satisfied.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, thank you. Thanks for bringing that forward. Next is ongoing city project and goal list. February 2020 city and Providence financials. Questions? 10C, letter from our sister city in South Korea, our sister port. You know, I read that letter and they're not very specific. It does seem like they're perhaps looking for some aid. I would like to send a letter back that just, you know, our warmest greetings. You know, we've been watching their situation closely. We hope that they're doing fine. If there's anything specifically that we could do for them. You know, I know at this point, I think South Korea, last I checked, is doing quite well and on the upswing as opposed to where we might be. But I don't know if there's anyone else that feels strongly about sending any type of aid or anything else in that letter. Madam Clerk, did you have any recommendations or?
No, the only thing I glean out of the letter is that they're looking for face masks. And that is an issue that we're faced with as well, so I'm not sure.
Councilmember Cease?
There's several people that have been making them now, and one of them said that they were distributing to the hospitals. Is there certain materials that you have to use, or can you use your material at home?
And my understanding is those homemade face masks are not medical grade. Like we would really have to be in dire straits for our medical community to be using non-disposable homemade masks.
I'm not sure if she got the material, one of them anyway, because she said possibly to go here to Sheila Squire's place, and that she might be able to help, so maybe there is some, you don't, I
I'll
didn't
look
know
to
if you knew.
Councilmember Kreitz, is there?
No, so we had this discussion at the clinic and have been following the CDC guidelines on that. And so the way that the healthcare community had been utilizing it where they have been short is they've been using it over an N95, and they have just been reusing the N95 and washing that actual cloth mask itself. But to utilize just that mask as a barrier would be just an extreme last resort where there would be no supplies whatsoever. for
Okay,
protection.
the one inside though, you say they wash those?
They're washing the cloth mask.
Oh, the
but
cloth
They're
mask.
still using it over an N95.
So
yeah,
how-
To just try to preserve that N95 mask.
Oh, so you can use that several times?
Yeah, that was the way that they were
Okay,
utilizing that.
that's what I
Yeah.
wondered. Okay.
So I guess at this point, I don't know that we would have N95 masks to spare. We might just kind of communicate that to them somehow, that we're just at the beginning of our potential crisis. Unless there's will on the council to try to send them a box of masks. I don't know that we're able to do that as a community right now.
Not right now, I would think, because we're having trouble getting them.
Next on the agenda is citizen comments. We do have one citizen would you like to make a comment?
Yes, Norm Regis, Harbor Master, letting you know that we are open down at the harbor, we are doing boat lifts, no contact with the public, we take phone calls, we're emailing, it's a little bit of a challenge. Some people are not used to, some of the boaters that are coming, the fishermen coming are not used to that, but we are working through it. On the weekends, we're helping them out, we're getting power turned on when they can come in, and we're letting them know if anybody's sick on board. There is some protocols that when a vessel comes in, if anybody's sick on board, you gotta let us know. If you're sick, then you need to self-contain, and then call the hospital, and then go do the steps that way. So I believe the railroad's doing the same protocol. But we are open, we are working. If you have questions, go ahead and give us a call. if it seems like a long ring, because the call's being forwarded to somebody at home, we have one staff member is 14 days self-quarantine right now. He gets out next week. So, and then we have another one that, of course, you know, the health, the babysitters are having a problem, so the husband and wife are working, so they're both working, so they're just trying to manage it. So we are staffed, and just give us a call.
Great, thank you. Administration, I'll start with you if you have any comments.
The only thing I wanted to mention when Jason was talking, there's also aid for businesses through the Alaska Small Business Development Corporation. It's aksbdc.org, and that's through UAA, and then of course KPED, and then the governor's coronavirus alaska.gov is pretty accurate on up-to-date stuff. But thank you. It's been a long couple of weeks, and the staff I appreciate all of them, and they are fantastic. And all of you too. Thank you for being here.
Sounds good. I'll start with Councilmember Butts.
Wash your hands. I've been saying it for months.
Councilmember Buckland.
I was gonna say the same thing. This is face everyone. Okay. I just want to say that I know this is hard to be at home and by yourself, or with your family if you're lucky. I'm by myself. But if you don't need to be out, stay home. Let's help stop the spread of it. Keep your hands washed. There's so many resources out in the community, so if you need help, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't get into a situation where it's the last possible minute where you ask for help and you need help. Ask for help before you get there. There's so many people that can help out in this town and will help out. This is a new situation for everyone here. So everyone, I truly honestly believe that the city administration, everyone in the city is working very hard to do what they can within what the restraints are. So getting frustrated about things isn't helpful. Talking about them and reaching out and asking for answers is important. And spread positivity more than news on Facebook is a really good thing to practice. Because when we share news or you get into that circle, it just gets depressing. And I would like to task everyone with trying to make one post a day that has nothing to do with the virus. So thank you for everyone's patience. Thank you to the people who called and sent emails and public comments for tonight. I really appreciate it, and I always look towards that guidance when making decisions. So be safe and wash your hands. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kreitz.
I would like to ask, I didn't realize you were coming around again, but Albie had asked, I think she had asked if she could speak at citizen comments.
Did she leave her?
I think there was an email, I don't know if you maybe saw it, I don't know if you saw it or not, but she did send an email.
I did see, she posted on Facebook
Oh,
her
okay.
entire.
Okay, she did
Okay.
ask, so I just was gonna ask if that,
Right.
she could call in to speak, or she just wouldn't, I don't think she realized there was a time limit on her earlier, so she was
Right.
gonna ask if she could finish
I'm
speaking.
happy to call her.
That's fine. She can be called.
I don't have her cell number.
Okay,
I have to.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, do you want? Okay.
Real quick.
Do we want to take why don't we take a 5-minute break while we call her?
Okay, recess.
Yep.
It's warm in here.
Recess at 9:58.
But I didn't wear a heavy
So I will call Albie Tatum back.
Please dial the... Hello?
Hi, Albie, it's Brenda, and you're
Hi.
in council.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So Albie, let me just clarify for you. So you were speaking under public comments. It wasn't made clear to me that you were invited to give a presentation.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, I guess, okay, well, I would appreciate that if you clarify that on Facebook, please. It wasn't made clear that you were here for a presentation. I didn't realize you'd been invited.
Okay, I will.
Okay. Go ahead, you have the floor.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to finish. The local healthcare providers in Seward continue to prepare for the inevitable wave of new cases and critical cases. Local and borough estimates show that as many as 30 people just in the Seward area will have critical illness associated with COVID-19. I can tell you right now that Seward cannot handle even half of those if they come all at once. As of today at 1 p.m., we currently have one confirmed case of COVID-19 in Seward. The capacity to test is severely limited at this time locally, statewide, and nationwide, which translates to we don't know how many cases there are currently in our community. We at the healthcare level are doing all that we can do at this point. So now to the personal level of all of this. Every citizen has a critical part to play in how this pans out for us both nationally and locally. If our healthcare system fails, part of that is on each person in our city, state, and nation. I have noticed some drastic changes over the past week in Seward, and I appreciate the changes that have been made thus far, but I fear that they will not be enough. If you want to understand the gravity of this situation, ponder this for a moment. The United States has one of the most robust and advanced healthcare systems in the world. All we have right now to combat this is stay home. That's it. That's all we can do at this point. That is how serious this is. This is an unknown and invisible enemy. We are not asking people to go out and fight. We're asking people to stay home. Severely restrict who you come into contact with, and strictly quarantine even if you have only mild symptoms. Only go to the store if you absolutely have to. Only to the post office if you must, and limit the number of times a week you do this. Go alone. Don't take your entire family. Socially distance no matter where you are. This is all we have right now. This will give our healthcare system a fighting chance. We don't want to be Italy. Small towns like ours have been some of the hardest hit there. We need at least two weeks, but that is just a start. Data suggests that drastic measures taken early will decrease the duration, but only if they are drastic. 2 weeks will be a good start. Again, I, on behalf of the Seward Community Health Center, with support of our community healthcare system as a whole, beg you to impose a strict shelter-in-place mandate or hunker-down mandate for the community of Seward and our surrounding jurisdictions. I know that that's hard. And as our city leaders, implore you to urgently connect with the state officials voicing our support of a statewide extensive travel ban. When we are past all of this and looking back, I will not say I wish I would have. We as a community with very limited healthcare resources have to do more than what is being mandated currently by the state. The least you could have done is to pass the Hunker Down resolution to better assist us in healthcare with flattening the curve. I urge you to do whatever is needed to pass the strict needed mandate immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember, is there any comment or is there any questions for Albie?
No.
Councilmember Cease?
Okay, I guess it isn't really, maybe it is. I thought that our list of stuff that we didn't go ahead and say mandate hunker down, we're doing everything that was on that list already, correct? So by not passing it, it means then we'll just follow whatever the state's doing.
So Albie, have you seen the new mandates that the state came out with today? Did you say that you wrote that, or those recommendations were made prior to the governor's mandates announced later this afternoon?
Correct. I did write this prior. However, if you look at the Anchorage Hunker Down order, it is a lot more limiting, maybe not punitively limiting, but it's a lot more directive about what people should and should not be doing, even within their own communities. The mandates that were set out by the state today are directly impact travel, both coming into the state and going out, like around the state, but not necessarily in what you're doing in your community.
So, and that goes back to, in the community, that goes back to social distancing, less than 10 people at a meeting, 6 feet away. Are there any other specific recommendations you can make for our community?
I think that you should only at this point be, I think that Anchorage, and I don't have the wording right in front of me of what Anchorage did, but essentially Anchorage said you need to only go out of your house for these essential things, and they had a very strict list.
Okay, well,
and that did include to go outside and recreate, and when you were outside recreating, you should maintain these distances. And they were very specific about what businesses should be able to stay open and what those limitations are on that.
so I'm just going to read those so the public can at least hear. So everyone, this is what they say, shall stay at home as much as possible, except to work in certain critical jobs, to buy, sell, or deliver groceries or other important goods, to receive or provide health care, to go and get fresh air without contacting others. On limited occasions, when individuals leave home, they should maintain social distancing of at least 6 feet from any person outside of their home whenever possible. I was trying to see anything else. So the other things they talk about is if anyone at risk should reduce their exposure by staying home, and anyone more likely to be contagious shall reduce contact, and that has to do with some of the state mandates that are put in place. And then they have a list of critical businesses. So those all sound like in line of what you're recommending at this time?
Yes.
Okay. And so I have one more question, because on a meeting today, we're really trying to reach out to everyone's altruistic side to protect others, but maybe what we need to be telling people is they need to stay home so they themselves don't get sick.
I think it's a combination of both. Like, you have the younger community who may or may not have severe disease from this, but every person that I come into contact with, my family comes into contact with currently. And so you have to think of it in that way, that every person that you come into contact with, you have just had contact with anybody that they've had contact with. And so it's really you have to stop the spread of the disease. And it's an unseen, unknown disease. The most spread that occurs with this disease, the most viral shedding, occurs when people are asymptomatic, 2 days prior to any symptom onset. And so you don't know who has it, and there's no way of knowing. So all that we have is people literally limiting their contact to people that they already are in contact with right now. And if that is a handful of people, that's the only people that they can come in contact with. And same goes for the next person. And if everybody doesn't do that right now, we are going to be in trouble.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you. We'll let you go now because we're continuing with council comments. We suspended the rules to go back on the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kreitz? Okay. Councilmember Osenga?
I'd like to thank Albie, and actually I think it kind of worked out better. I think this is better having this message at the end of the meeting, as well said as she said it. Be safe out there, distance yourself, and do all the best things you need to do.
Thank you. Councilmember Cease?
And I also want to thank Albie for finishing that. I'm sorry also that, because when we said no presentations, we said no on our stuff. So anyway, I want to thank her. She was very informative. I also want to mention that I had I read one thing about the radio station. For our local radio station is in need of donations. If you feel that you can do that, it would be great. I want to thank the city manager for all his work, our city clerk for all her work, the police department for all of their help, And anybody behind the scenes here that are working at home or whatever, I appreciate everything they're doing. Please stay home. It's awful hard, especially for me, that's a gatter, to stay home and do something. Take up a new craft. Maybe I'll get my quilt built. So, thank you.
Vice Mayor McClure?
Well, pretty much what everyone else said. We're adjusting to something new, and one of the things that I've observed lately is people are very quick to judge. I've gotten some looks and things when I've driven in just to take care of my mom, and people leave their homes in their car by themselves to go to a place where you've been with that one person. It happens, and people leave their homes to go to their essential job. It happens. And when you receive gestures and things, it's related to your being out of your house. That's not kind, and it's not what Seward's about. I think people are getting a little extreme in those areas. That said, I think it's important for us when we're distancing like this so much to realize that there are a lot of people who are, for the first time, really alone, particularly the seniors that used to go every day to the senior center to socialize, and I call a lot of them. Call people, talk to them. If you've got all that time at home, talk to people, just check in, because it's really important. I'm on the cutting edge of that right now. I also appreciate the hard work that the city manager and the staff have put in to get this thing as far along as we have, and appreciate my colleagues coming here tonight and doing this. I think it's important to at least have one last face-to-face meeting before we fumble through trying to call in and such things. So anyway, just stay home and do what's right.
Great, thank you. I wanted to assure our public that Seward survived the 1964 earthquake, and we not only survived, but we thrived and became the wonderful community that we have today. And I want to remind folks that the year after the earthquake, Seward was awarded an All-American City. So if we pull together now and do what we need to do, which includes staying home, getting outside separately, like my girls took the dog for a walk today, which, the dog enjoyed that. Like, get your kids outside in the sun that are home, social distance between others, meetings less than 10 or cancel meetings altogether. We're going to come successfully through this, but we have to act early and aggressively. And the more we can do now, then we're going to be able to slowly open things up without having huge consequences. Because when we come out of the back of this, we all need to be able to fiscally survive as a city. So as much as you're able, stay home, shelter in place, whether it's mandated or not, protect yourself, protect your family, and just focus on the next couple of weeks. I wanted to say that for our local businesses, we mentioned it once, but on KPED, Kenai Peninsula Economic Development District, they are having a survey to try to best help business at the end of this. We need to make sure that everyone's mental health is being taken care of. You're stuck inside with your kids and your husband and your dog. Get outside, take a breath. When you go to the grocery store, just use the brown bags that they have. And then I want to thank our medical staff that are working quite hard, our municipal workers, like you see them being sent home, but they're still working. There's people out there that are still working in the field, keeping our harbor open, our essential employees, just everywhere. And then great job to the city manager, his staff, the fire chief, the city clerk, the city attorney. Everyone's doing their best. And again, going back to something that Vice Mayor McClure said, there's a lot of rumors when you see other people, essential employees out there working, and you don't know what processes or procedures their businesses have been put in place. We're getting a lot of emails with finger pointing at your neighbors. If you have a real concern, call the local hospital, call DHSS. You don't know what they're doing, and now there's even more mandates in place for people self-isolating. And if you're one of those people, please take the opportunity to do what's right for yourself and your neighbors. So at that, I'll adjourn at 10:18.
Thank you.